presented by none other than SuperDraft.io
SuperDraft.
or download in the App Store. I'm Dave Lochran. With me, Adam Scher. And, this is going to be a wild slate. No two ways around it. It's going to be insane. Fortunately, we've gotten a lot of news. We just got some Orlando news prior to going live. Josh Engelman and I did the strategy show this morning, and much of what we discussed will change, which is why, well, you've got the deeper dive. You've got the live before lock. Adam, there's a lot to digest here for sure.
Yeah, definitely. One good thing is that the last game tonight starts at 8:30, so we should have at least most news. Any news that we are still waiting on, you would think that it's coming out before or right around lock. So that's good at least. But yeah, a lot of teams today that are missing players. Some of them more important than others, obviously. But it's a slate where I think it's pretty wide open as far as there's a lot of really good plays.
SuperDraft is the sponsor of the deeper dive. They're giving $6K up top tonight, $30,000 jump shot for this NBA action. $6,000 the first, $12 to enter. 86 multi-entries allowed. And here's the cool thing. There are no salaries. It is 100% multipliers. So what does that mean? I'm happy to tell you. That means that when you're looking at players, instead of Harden being 11,000, Harden would have a multiplier of 1, right? Whereas somebody like, let's pick Eric Bledsoe, 1.55 multiplier. So whatever he scores multiplied by 1.55 times his actual fantasy production. So if you wanted to tonight, you could play Harden and you could play Westbrook in the same lineup along with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Oh, and you know what? You want to play Doncic and Trae Young too? That's fine. But that doesn't necessarily make for a winning strategy because there are other guys that might have 1.5 times the multiplier. So they score 1.5 times their fantasy points and are worth more than them in the end, which makes it a really fun strategy and a fun puzzle to piece together. And you can get $20 in Super Cash, free $20 to play on the site, as good as money, just by signing up using the promo code Awesemo. It's AWESEMO, and depositing $100 or more. So you deposit $100, you immediately get another $20 back, and you're in business. So check it out, superdraft.io, or download it in the App Store. Sponsor of the Deeper Dive. $6K up top today, $30,000 NBA jump shot over there on SuperDraft. All right, let's dive into it, man. We've got Houston. We've got the New York Knicks. Kind of an interesting game. And by the way, we will be paying close attention to news as it breaks. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot as we just get Cam Reddish doubtful news coming down the pike. The New York Knicks are big dogs at home. No surprise. Right now, 10-point dogs. 230.5 total, though. This game has the second highest total on the slate behind only Memphis and Atlanta. Knicks are kind of interesting, though, because while Houston can easily shoot you off the court with like no issues at all, Adam, Julius Randle is below 8K on DraftKings. Houston, I've said this a lot, but it's important. Worst rebounding team without Capella. They are one of the worst teams in terms of allowing points in the paint. Offensive, defensive rebounds, you name it. It is an advantageous spot for Randle. It's just a matter of, are his two-pointers going to keep them in contention when Houston's raining down threes? Elfrid Payton's another one. Legitimate triple-double upside. Pace-up spot, 230 plus total. And then Mitchell Robinson. What do we do with someone like him who is beginning to play considerably more minutes, but much smaller Houston lineup they'll be going up against today at Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, I think we do have a game recently where the Knicks played Houston and Robinson played 26 minutes. That included some blowout run, but he also was in first half foul trouble. The main takeaway for me as far as Robinson's minutes in that game was that the rotation looked like you would expect it to. Taj Gibson played what he normally plays. Robinson subbed in, got in foul trouble like he normally does. But you didn't see them go really small. You didn't see like a bunch of extra minutes for Portis. You didn't see Randle at the 5. So I'm treating it that way here. I have Robinson in for another 28 minutes. He's been playing more minutes recently, like you said. There's apparently been talk from the Knicks about him beginning to start the second half. They said that they still don't want him to start the game. I'm guessing because he would immediately be on the bench with fouls anyway. So what's the point? But so I think that talk at least makes the minutes more secure as well. Certainly a guy you can get to in tournaments just because of the price tag. Randall's pretty much the same boat. He's relatively inexpensive. It is a pace-up spot. He should have success. in the paint against Houston. But one problem that you are going to run into on this slate on teams that are relatively healthy, like the Knicks are, is that they're just not going to be as mispriced as players on some of these other teams. So I think Robinson, Randall, and even Barrett look like secondary options to me where there's a decent chance that they have a good game. They're affordable, but they're not guys that I'm prioritizing.
So nobody on this team you're prioritizing?
Right.
Okay. How much faith do you have in Mitchell Robinson to get 28 or 30 minutes today?
More than I have in a while this season, just because the minutes have clearly been trending up. And because, like I said, you have the talk from the Knicks about him potentially starting third quarters. It still comes down. I think the plan is for him to get 28 to 30 minutes. It still comes down to whether or not he manages to stay on the floor or if he just, hacks James Harden and Westbrook every time they approach the basket. But I think the plan would be 28 to 30 minutes.
Okay. I do like Randall here. I think there's a lot of upside for a big game here against the Houston Rockets. Now, like I said, this can go one of two ways. This can get ugly very quickly, and they get shot off the floor. They could get run off the floor, no question. We've seen Houston do it to most teams they've faced recently, and the Knicks are not exactly equipped to defend them beyond the arc. But I think Randall's at a price point now where he's reasonably priced enough to consider him. Elfrid Payton's price is up a little bit. On FanDuel, you're getting him at 6,300 though, and I still think that's pretty fair. I like just the pace up spot. It's what it comes down to for me. He's not on SuperDraft, but actually, I'm sorry. Yes, he is. They're running the 7:00 games today. Okay, 7-game slate. There's 3 7s. That makes sense. So Elfrid Payton on SuperDraft is 1.5 times. What do you make of that? 1.5x on SuperDraft. Randall's, I think Randall's less than that. He's 1.4. But yeah, does Elfrid Payton appeal to you a little bit more there?
Yeah, I think that the salary multiplier there, 1.5 on him and 1.4 on Randall, makes them really appealing because whereas I said that on the salaried sites, they're not priorities for me in large part because the Knicks aren't really missing any key players. The multiplier on SuperDraft makes up for that, and it kind of makes it more like Randall or Payton being significantly underpriced on a salary site.
Let's talk about the Rockets a little bit here. You've got Harden and Westbrook, $500 separated on DraftKings. Harden's 10.5. Westbrook is 10,000 flat. On FanDuel, Harden is 10.8. Westbrook 10.7. So they're much closer. They're separated by only $100. But they've been producing pretty much the same rates, the same type numbers over the past 1+ months, Adam. How do you differentiate them today? And is this a spot where you'll try and get an equal amount of both?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really interesting because the salaries are really close. And obviously, you would normally say that when the salaries get to that point, Harden's the guy that you should prefer. But I'm really not convinced that that's the case at this point. I think that for me, they project really, really similarly. And we've seen the field still really prefer Harden, which I think makes sense because, people are normally slow to adjust to things. But I think there's, actually reason to think that Westbrook can produce it, can sustain the pace that he's been at. If you look at the games, if you go back the last 2 months and look at games that him and Harden have played together, Westbrook has a much higher usage percentage, whether that is because defenses are scheming differently against Harden, which we've seen in some games, or now I think you're getting more usage from Westbrook as a result of the change in personnel in Houston. I think that they are pretty similar. Westbrook, they play similar minutes. Westbrook often plays a minute or two more than Harden. Like I said, the usage has been higher. If you go back the 9 games or 10, if you go back 10 games, which would be the last game that Capella played, and then the 9 since he got hurt and then left, Westbrook's had the higher usage rate 6 times. Harden's had the higher usage rate 4 times. But the extra spacing on the floor means that Westbrook should be able to produce at a higher rate because it's easier for him to get to the basket. He's averaging a little over 1 more drive per 36 minutes since Capella's last game than he was over the entire season. So you're seeing that a little bit more. It hasn't translated into more rebounds. It's been about the same for Westbrook, but it wouldn't be surprising going forward if he starts getting more rebounds too. So I really think that, especially with Harden still projected for more ownership, like on DraftKings, he's at 15%, Westbrook is at 9. I think that they're more or less the same player at this point from a DFS standpoint.
I do too. And One advantage you can get with Harden on DraftKings specifically is on those nights where he hits 9 threes. Obviously, you have that bonus
Right.
working in your favor, and it's easier to rack up points in that event. But knowing Westbrook's a guy who get 1 or 2 3-point attempts per game. That's exactly how Mike D'Antoni needs it. There's no need for him to shoot threes when you have a stable of 3-point shooters surrounding him. And you pretty much pointed everything out there. That's the one difference between Harden and Westbrook. But there's also, in the same breath, Westbrook's getting very easy buckets right now. I mean, he's getting to the rim with ease. And hell, if you're giving me 25 field goal attempts per game and half of those are in the paint as a guard, a good rebounding and passing guard, I mean, there's so much to like there. So.
Yeah, it just opens it up for him so much. You're not seeing mid-range shots from him. You're not seeing 3-pointers, but those are inefficient shots. They're shots he doesn't make. It's just so much easier for him to get to the rim when there's nobody there. And we've seen, like, in some games, like Utah's using Rudy Gobert to defend Russell Westbrook because teams can't put their center out on Covington or PJ Tucker. So
and it didn't work either.
Right. It's really made it easier for Westbrook, and that's why I think that I agree with your point about Harden's threes. I just think that with the way Houston is running their offense now, that there's a much, much smaller gap between Harden and Westbrook than there normally is.
Oh, yeah. Westbrook has played, hold on, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 games in February, and he scored 30 plus in 11 of them. So it's just crazy numbers you're getting from him. Sorry, in 12 of them, 30 plus real points in 12 of them, just insane numbers. And there's no doubt that coincides with Capella being off the floor. It's not to say that he wasn't having some really solid games with Capella on the floor, but what we're seeing recently is just an entirely different brand of Russell Westbrook, and he's playing his best basketball for sure. What about the rest of the Rockets?
So, I mean, Harden, obviously, I think it's about the same as Westbrook. The rest of the Rockets, though, it starts to get pretty unappealing. Covington's playing big minutes. He is getting a ton of rebounds or rebound opportunities. And I think that he's the third guy on Houston for me, but his salary has started to come up to where I don't think there's a ton of excess value there. And then amongst guys like PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon, Daniel House, all sub 4K on DraftKings, but also all essentially non-existent offensively when Westbrook and Harden are healthy. So, they could sneak into some lineups if you're making 150, but if you're playing 3 max or single entry or something like that, I don't think I'd be looking there.
Want to move on?
Yep.
Orlando, Portland. Got some big news on this Magic team. Aaron Gordon is out. He's averaging more than 10 potential assists per game over the last 3 weeks. Like, really seeing a huge uptick in playmaking opportunities. It's actually affected Vucevic a little bit, who is one of the better passing big men in the league. But now you've got Aaron Gordon sideline. He's playing really, really well, racking up numbers, stuffing the box score, really, which is exactly what you're looking for. Played 35 plus minutes in 7 straight games, 41 minutes or more in 3 of his last 4. So this is a big void that needs to be filled. They were 7-point favorites, then 6.5-point favorites. And then Aaron Gordon got ruled out. So now they are still 6.5, 220 total here against the Damian Lillard-less Portland Trailblazers. But the interesting spot here is now you've got Gary Clark starting for the Orlando Magic. And the last time he played was the 21st of February. It's hard to say how much run he's going to get, but with the amount of minutes that Gordon has been getting recently, Adam, that's a lot of minutes you're taking out of the rotation. Even if you were to just say 37, we don't have to give him 40 or 41, but like 37 minutes from Gordon is removed from the lineup tonight against a bad Blazers team that plays at an elevated pace and has one of the worst defenses in the league since the start of January.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing you get something like 26 minutes from Clark. He's not a great per minute guy. It is a good matchup. One reason that I'm not going higher on his minutes, in addition to the fact that he just, obviously hasn't been playing, but you do have a lot of guys on Orlando that could soak up more minutes. Like we've seen James Ennis playing as Aaron Gordon's backup. So realistically, you could just get more minutes at the 4 for Ennis, and then more minutes for guys like Carter Williams, Fournier, Terrence Ross. So I don't think that Clark necessarily has to play a ton of minutes, but I feel reasonably comfortable putting him in for, mid 20s. And on this particular slate, I'm not sure how useful that'll be. He projects for like 17 to 18 DraftKings points if I do that. And I think that there's enough value that I probably won't really get there. But the biggest thing for me is that Gordon being out, even though he's not a high usage guy, you mentioned the assists, but he also rebounds, and he's relative to this team, he's still one of the higher usage guys. Taking him out and replacing him with Clark or a Wundu or Birch, like whoever, no matter what happens in the rotation, whoever takes those minutes, it's going to be a lower usage guy than Gordon. So you should see an increase in usage for Vooch. You should see an increase in usage for Fournier and potentially even Markelle Fultz.
Okay, Reggie Bullock is out, by the way, for whatever that's worth, not much. Do you have any priority options for Orlando? Vucevic is in a very interesting spot here against a pretty inferior defensive front court for the Blazers.
Yeah, I think that it was a good spot for Vooch, even if Gordon was in. But with him out, I think the usage does go up. I think the rebounding opportunities go up. Without Jonathan Isaac or Aaron Gordon on the floor this year, he has a 20% rebounding percentage, which looks pretty nice. You're typically getting around 34 minutes in competitive games. Portland's been the least efficient defense since January 1st. They've allowed the most total rebounds and the most offensive rebounds per game. And Vooch's salary has finally come down. We had seen for a while his salary basically at the same price point as Hassan Whiteside, but now he's $1,400 less on FanDuel. He's $1,200 less on DraftKings. He looks like a really, really good option.
Yeah, really like him. Backcourt scenario here. Markelle Fultz has seen his price point come down a little bit here. He was up in that 6K, high 5K range on DraftKings. Now you've got him tumbling down to 5,300. On FanDuel, 5,100. Is that enough for you against the Blazers? And I keep mentioning against the Blazers because it is a very appealing spot. Portland playing this East Coast road trip right now. They just haven't looked very good. McCollum's doing what he can, but it hasn't been enough. The first two games of this road stretch, they lost to Indy. Then they lost by 12 to the Atlanta Hawks. And now they come in against an Orlando team whose defense hasn't been as strong recently, but still not a bad team. And as you can see, they're laying 6.5 points at home.
Yeah, I think that he's a secondary guy for me. It's tough to give him a lot of minutes because, I have him at 30, but it's tough to give him like more than that. Now that you have Augustine healthy, you have Carter Williams still playing minutes. Potentially, he could benefit if they do play smaller and you just get like more DJ Augustine alongside him. But I'm going with 30 minutes for him. He's played 105 minutes this year with Fournier and Vooch on the floor without either one of Gordon or Isaac. He's got a 22.9% usage rate, so a little bit of a usage bump. The rest of his stats are pretty much in line with what you would expect. So, I haven't projected around or between 29 and 30 points here, DraftKings points, which at 5,300 makes him a good play, but not someone that is, a huge priority for me.
Anyone else before we move to Portland?
You can take, it's still just, kind of high upside. I don't want to say low probability, but not, I guess, just secondary plays in Fournier and Ross, because again, there is the potential for them to get a little bit more playing time. You should see more usage for someone like Fournier as well.
Surely Amateur Sexbot has some pretty hot takes coming in chat right now. Greg S has the right take. Smash that like, then take a hike, Sexbots. I love it. Appreciate that, Greg. Let's talk about the Blazers. So Damian Lillard is targeting a Wednesday return. That's good. They need him pretty badly. And in all seriousness, the West, when I say wide open, right, I don't mean wide open and that anyone can win. What I mean is that, Adam, there are still plenty of teams that can legitimately compete for a playoff spot right now, right? That 8th seed. So the 7th seed is the Mavs. They have 37 wins. 8th seed is the Grizzlies with 29. So there's a logjam between 4 and 7, between 2 and 3. Lakers have pulled ahead, but the Pels, the Kings, the Spurs, and the Blazers are all between like 2.5 and 3 games behind the Grizzlies right now. I say that I mentioned that all to say that Terry Stotts, if there was one thing we know, he's going to continue to run his starters for a lot of minutes, whether they've been productive or not. That includes Whiteside, obviously McCollum. That includes Carmelo Anthony. And that's had that had that not been the case, we probably wouldn't even talk about guys like Carmelo Anthony if he was playing 30 minutes a night.
Yeah, agreed. He hasn't been. I mean, he's still Carmelo Anthony. He's still not very good.
Yeah, he's not been very productive.
Right. But the opportunities are there, and it's something we've talked about before. The per minute production with and without Lillard, it goes up for Melo, but it's not by a drastic amount. It's just that the usage does go up, and that means that the ceiling is higher when he becomes the second option offensively, as opposed to the third behind Lillard and McCollum. So, playing big minutes and getting those opportunities at a cheap price tag, it still makes him reasonable. This isn't a very appealing matchup, though. Orlando, not a fast team, a pretty solid defensive team. And, again, you're talking about an inefficient player in Melo. So still a secondary option for me. I think that Portland in general is not as appealing here as they have been in some other games recently. Obviously just not a great matchup. You're looking at big minutes, like you said. McCollum should play 38 plus. And he obviously benefits without Lillard on the floor. He should lead the team in usage. The problem you run into is that on DraftKings, he's 9,300. You have, Luka's only $1,000 more. Trae Young's only 1,200 more. Westbrook is 700 more. There's a really, really stacked guard position that's not that much more expensive than McCollum. On FanDuel, you have him as an $8,800 shooting guard, which is a little bit more appealing. But I do think that I'll probably have less McCollum today than I have at pretty much any point since Lillard's been out.
All right. You're cool with the price point across the board on McCollum?
No, not really.
Okay. I gotta ask. Whiteside is getting up there in price a lot, and I guess the dynamic changes a little bit from this morning because earlier Andre Drummond at 8,000 with no Tristan Thompson was somebody that we would have talked a lot about. He's out though. Kristaps Porzingis is out. Just mentioning a few guys with 8K plus salaries. But Whiteside on DraftKings is 9,600, Adam. He's by far the most expensive center on FanDuel and DraftKings. 95 on FanDuel. Vooch is $8,100 on FanDuel and $8,400 on DraftKings. I just don't see really I don't see the appeal to getting that high up to Whiteside against Orlando when I can get a discounted Vooch against Portland.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult, and it's not because it's not even like it's just Vooch. You also have Valanciunas, who's really cheap. You have Gobert against a depleted Cleveland front court. You have potentially value centers that you can roll the dice on. So it's not even like it's just a Whiteside versus Vooch, and if Vooch fails, you're in a really good spot with Whiteside. You kind of need the entire position to fail, and there's a lot of guys at other positions to pay up for as well. So while I don't think there's any questioning Whiteside's upside, it's not a good matchup against a slow, good defensive team in Orlando, and he's priced a lot more than a lot of really good centers.
You have anything else for Portland?
Nope, these guys should play big minutes, but I just think that there's better spots to get to on the slate.
I'm with you. And that's why I said the only reason we really even talk about them here is because they're playing so many minutes.
Right.
Cleveland and Utah. You ready for this?
No.
Yeah, it's not very fun. But here we go. All right, so Andre Drummond out. Tristan Thompson out. Darius Garland out. I'll even throw Dante Exum in there out because they can use all the reinforcements they can get at this point. So here's the starting lineup, Adam. Before I get to that, I'll let you know they're 9.5 point favorites. Drummond only moved the line a point, really, and I'm assuming it was him. 222 total. Big dogs at home. So for the Cleveland Cavs, you've got Colin Sexton, Kevin Porter Jr., Jetty Osman, Larry Nance, and Kevin Love. So Love starting at center. Larry Nance getting the start at the 4. Here we go, man. I want to start in the front court because this is where the most movement was. Thompson and Drummond out. That's 48 minutes removed from the rotation. Kevin Love getting a start closer to the basket, pretty appealing. And Larry Nance just getting a start altogether. Really don't care if he's not coming off the bench, if his usage comes down a little bit, because I'm projecting him for north of 30 minutes, and he's a pretty decent per minute guy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the biggest issue, the two biggest issues to start with are that most of the guys on Cleveland suck and they're playing Utah. But beyond that, minutes are going to be there, rebounds are going to be there, usage is going to be there, with no Garland, no Drummond, and no Thompson. So, and Utah at least hasn't been that good defensively of late. So, as bad as it feels, I'm going to
They've
end up.
actually been 26th over the last month in
Yeah,
the league.
they've been bad.
That's bad.
Yeah. So I mean, as unappealing as it feels, I think that it's pretty clear that there's some really good pricing or really favorable pricing on these Cleveland guys. You know, Nance should play big minutes. The fact that Ante Zizic isn't starting helps to solidify those minutes even more for Larry Nance. I'm expecting the normal, 34 to 36 minutes that you get when he starts. He isn't the highest usage guy, but he does contribute across the board. Kevin Love gets a rebounding bump without Thompson or Drummond. He also sees his usage rate go up a bit. He's at 25.5% without either of them on the floor this year. And, obviously it makes sense, especially in Drummond's case. You had seen Love losing rebounds and usage because Drummond does so much of both. So I think that Love looks good. And then also he played 37 minutes last game. So it's nice to know that at least there's not any sort of unofficial minutes cap on him. And they're short bodies here. So I don't really have any issue giving him 34 minutes and thinking that, potentially he could play even more. So I think Love looks really good. Like, he's a reason why I couldn't prioritize Julius Randle at the same position, because Love's a little bit less expensive. Colin Sexton should get a ton of usage and have the ball in his hands a bit more without Garland. Kevin Porter should play huge minutes. You've gotten 32 or 30 and 34 minutes in his last two games. They've talked about wanting to use him as a ball handler more. Now without Garland in the lineup, they have that opportunity. Without Garland, Drummond, or Thompson on the floor this year, Porter has a 20.5% assist percentage. So you're at least getting peripherals in addition to the usage from Porter, and you should get big minutes there. So I think those four are the main priorities. Then you obviously have a really cheap Cedi Osman as well, but you run into the issue of he's still probably the fourth or fifth option offensively. He's still not going to get tons of rebounds. So I think pretty clearly the fifth guy.
These sex bots are out of control. It's out of control. I guess they heard DFS and thought it'd be a perfect landing spot to get some clicks. But I mean, my God. Try to get a good chat going, and people trying to ruin everything. And don't they know that everything's free nowadays anyway? What's the point? Anyway, so overall thoughts on, and by the way, sorry, I was trying to monitor this, looking at this chat. Overall thoughts on Nance and Love compared to the rest of the slate today.
I think that they both look like really good options at their positions, especially Nance because he's so cheap. Like, Love, I think, stands out at his price range, but you do at least have to start considering, the fact that there's a lot of really good pay up options as well. Nance is only 4,900 on FanDuel. He's only 5,200 on DraftKings. So, I think that his price tag looks a little bit more favorable.
Let's talk about the forwards in the backcourt. Osman and Porter and Sexton. No Garland today. I'm just going to call him Colin because I don't want to trigger the sex bots even more. What are you doing with Kevin Porter?
I think I'll end up with a lot of Porter. Gets the bump in assist percentage without Garland, so it makes his floor, I think, a little bit higher. You're not talking about someone that is going to shoot a lot but not get anything in the way of peripherals. You should get some assists from him, and the minutes have been up recently anyway. Now it's really easy for him to play a lot of minutes. He's still inexpensive, so I would put him a little bit behind Nance and Love, but I think him and Sexton are both still really good options at their price points.
All right, so what about Colin? And I'm sorry. If you have Cedi and you have Porter and you have Sexton, Colin, are you willing to set groups to keep too many of them from getting into lineups? And are you willing to set a limit on how many Cavs in a lineup? Because while Utah hasn't played particularly great defense, and they've been a very streaky team since the start of the new year, very streaky team, it is still the Cleveland Cavaliers who are almost double-digit dogs at home.
Yeah, I still don't think I'd want to play more than like 2 or 3.
That's where I'm at as well.
Right. And the reason is that from a medium projection standpoint, they look really good. And you could certainly from that standpoint, get to 4 or potentially even like 5 if you need Chetty's salary in there. But you're still talking about a team with a 106 or 107 team total in against a slow Utah team. Cleveland themselves isn't really fast. So, and there's so many other good plays on the slate that the opportunity cost of any single roster spot is pretty high. So I still don't think I would want more than 2 or 3 in a lineup, just because it's unlikely that you're getting 4 or 5 of these guys having ceiling games all at once.
Okay. Well, now that Cleveland's out of the way, it's time to talk about the Jazz. A lot of these guys have been pretty disappointing lately, particularly Rudy Gobert. His rebounding has fallen through the floor. Josh and I talked about that a lot today, this morning. It's been kind of uncanny to see him just completely fall off from a rebounding front. And I get it. It's not a lot of games, so I guess take it with a grain of salt. And you face a Houston team that jacks up a ton of threes, rebounds are further away from the rim and all that good stuff. Fine. But his rebounds over the last 4 games, 9, 9, 8, and 6. Before that, 14, 20, 15, 15, 14, 14. So I'm just going to work on the assumption that it's a fluke. But if Rudy Gobert is not rebounding at a high clip, you're talking about a guy that has like a 14% usage rate or something. You need those rebounds to accompany the blocks and the 10 or so points he gets you every day. He's $7,800 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Rudy Gobert is $7,800. And over there on SuperDraft with the multiplier, you got Gobert at 1.3 x his fantasy production. What are we doing? We'll start with the Gobert in the front court and work our way down.
I don't think I'm prioritizing anything here just because Utah is fully healthy. I think it's a pretty decent spot for Gobert, but it's just really tough to prioritize him at center because you have Vooch for not that much more, only 300 more on FanDuel and I think 600 more on DraftKings. You have Valanciunas, who is less expensive on both sites and both in great spots. So I think it gets tough to do anything with Gobert outside of use him as a lower owned tournament pivot. I agree that the rebounding probably is fluky. Like if you go back, he hasn't been rebounding well during this stretch, but then he had that stretch right before it where he was rebounding at an even higher clip. These things tend to just, even out. So I still think that we should be treating him like we, have all season long, where, he's a good option here, but I would put him behind those other 2.
Okay. Your thoughts on Mike Conley at I want to say he's discounted, but not by a ton. I mean, if Conley was 6,800, you certainly aren't paying for him. So probably a little bit cheaper than he should be at $5,400 on DraftKings. But what are you thinking on him against the Cavs?
Yeah, I mean, I think he should be around like 6K, so a little bit of a discount.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's a good matchup. Cleveland not good defensively. You do have a 116 total for Utah, which is nice. So yeah, I mean, I think he's underpriced. He's kind of like a glue guy for your DFS lineups, where he's clearly not going to be the first guy you're putting in, and there is a lot of opportunity cost at the guard positions, whether it's Westbrook or Luka or Harden or Trae Young or whoever. So John Morant. So from that standpoint, I think that Conley probably isn't like one of my highest owned guys just because there are so many other guards. But in lineups where I need the savings, he does look like a good value.
Okay. Do you have interest in Bogdanovich or Donovan Mitchell or Ingles or anyone else?
Not a ton. Mitchell's usage has been up. For the season, he's at 32.5% in games with Conley. If you look at just games where Conley and Clarkson have played, he's actually up at 34%. And it is a good matchup against Cleveland, but you run into the same issues that I was just talking about with Conley, where as good of a player as I think Mitchell is, I think there's a lot of guard plays that are better. So it's not someone that I'd be getting in tons of lineups.
All right. Let's keep it moving here. Miami and Milwaukee. A good game to watch. Not sure how great it is from a fantasy angle. Miami Heat 4-point dogs at home. Very good Milwaukee team. Second of a back-to-back. Charlotte gave them a fight yesterday, which was pretty surprising. But you know what? While there isn't a ton of parity in the NBA in terms of who's going to make it to the finals, who's making the playoffs, every so often you'll see a really bad team stay competitive or even beat a really good team. And we almost saw that yesterday. But Giannis dropped a 40-20 game, first of his career, and put that to rest. Now you've got Jimmy Butler on DraftKings at 7,500, which is very cheap. It'd be nice if he was a better three-point shooter. Josh and I had a very long discussion about that, this morning, especially against the Milwaukee team that in one area they struggle is they allow more threes than any other team, 3-point attempts and made threes. That's not his forte whatsoever. But he is 7,500. He is their go-to guy, especially in competitive games. Let's start with Jimmy Butler, 7,500. Is that discounted enough for you to get there on DraftKings?
It's pretty much the same things I said about Donovan Mitchell. Like, I think he's a little cheaper than he should be. You expect around 34 minutes from him. It is a huge pace up spot, but like it's just I'm not prioritizing him over the more expensive guards. But then also at shooting guard, you have guys like Dylan Brooks that we'll get to that I think are very, very clearly underpriced. You have DeMar DeRozan at a similar price point. So it's kind of just a product of the slate. Like if I look at FanDuel, where obviously it's a little bit easier to compare position by position because you only have one position. But if I just, factoring in salary, I have Butler as a good play, but I still have like 7 guys ahead of him at the position. So it's really tough to get to a lot of him.
Is it tough to get to Miami in general?
Yeah, I think he's the most appealing guy from Miami, and it's still difficult to get to.
I don't really have much. I guess I can ask you about Bam.
Yeah, it's kind of Bam's rates obviously go down a little bit when Butler's in. He still contributes across the board. He's still someone that can go out there and double-double or flirt with triple-doubles in any game, and he should benefit from the fast pace. But it's also a very good Milwaukee team. It's a good Milwaukee interior. Last game you had Giannis defending him a lot. This game, it could be Lopez, it could be Giannis, but just very, very good interior defense and defense overall from Milwaukee. And it's tough for me to get to Bam over those guys like Valanciunas and Vooch, but even over someone like Rudy Gobert.
Let's talk about Milwaukee then. The concern I always have is that Giannis might not be in the most favorable of spots. Miami's been a very good team at home this year, similar to the Sixers. They've just stunk on the road. Not quite as bad, but pretty rough. 13-18, 25-4 on their home court. But we've seen Giannis playing considerably more minutes lately, even in some games that weren't that close. But yesterday, close enough game, 35 minutes, 38 in regulation against Toronto, 35 against Philly in that one game that was close before the All-Star break, 34 against the Magic. This is just over his last 10, throwing a couple out there that were competitive games, or at least throughout the first 3+ quarters. I mean, if Giannis gets 35 minutes tonight, does it matter who he's playing? And even if that's the case, how do you prioritize him? Can you prioritize him with Harden and Young and Doncic and Westbrook all on this slate at pretty considerable discounts?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of slates, and this is definitely one of them, where Giannis is more appealing on FanDuel than DraftKings, even though the scoring is obviously more favorable on DraftKings with the bonuses. But it's just because you have more restricted positions. So on DraftKings, you're more or less saying, do I want to pay an extra $1,000 for Giannis than for all these other guys? Whereas on FanDuel, it's not quite that simple. But even on FanDuel, if I just run optimal lineups, I'm not getting Giannis in that many of them, which is unusual. But you have value with Kevin Porter at small forward. You have Bogdanovich as a reasonably cheap small forward. You have Rudy Gay. You have Kyle Anderson, and there are so many guards to pay up for that taking that value seems to be pretty appealing. So I have Giannis as the highest scorer on the slate. I think that he's obviously the best DFS, the best NBA DFS guy that there is. He's averaged 1.95 DraftKings points per minute in the games that he's played with Chris Middleton active this season. But it just comes down to the fact that he's so much more expensive than guys like Luka and Trae Young, and that Miami isn't the most favorable matchup.
Is there anybody from Milwaukee that you're interested in?
Nope, Giannis is the top guy from Milwaukee.
Okay, so this game in general, are you going to have anybody above 10%?
Wouldn't expect to. It kind of scares me because this game does have a 228 total. It should be a competitive game.
Yeah,
it's two
big
good
minutes,
teams.
Yeah.
It's just that the pricing seems very correct, and in a lot of the games you're missing players, so there's a lot of underpriced guys.
Yeah, I talked about this on the strategy show today. My one thing is, if it is close, the total, if it does come close to 230 total points, like someone has to score for Miami,
right? And
the assumption is that Jimmy Butler is going to shoulder a pretty heavy load. It's just, is it enough?
Right.
On a slate. Go ahead.
To me, the whenever there's games like this where it's a high total, but the pricing's not really that favorable, I think if you want to go to it, the best way is probably to game stack it and just hope that the game just goes absolutely nuts and that the pricing across the board ends up being efficient just as a result of the game going off. Because with even factoring in the 228 total, I think the pricing here is pretty much correct. But with both of these teams, you do know where the scoring is coming from. Like, it's coming from Butler, Bam, and one of the guards, probably Dragic or Nunn on Miami. It's coming from Giannis, Middleton, and Bledsoe on Milwaukee. So if this game were to shoot over its total, it's very easy to have the right pieces in your lineup. That being said, that's not a strategy that I usually go to.
Right. Deeper Dive, one word, is the promo code to get 50% off your first week. If you're new to the channel, if you're new to the site, well, this is for you. Or if you've been watching for a while and, either didn't have the means or didn't feel like it, well, here's your chance. 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Premium, all access subscription. Use that promo code Deeper Dive. It's all one word. That gets you the ownership projections, the player projections, all of our premium articles, the lineup builder. There is a Fantasy Cruncher add-on. It's separate, but if you're someone that likes to play multiple lineups a night, that's certainly something you'd want to look into. The Data Central, all of the stats you need. And if you go to awesemo.com/join, right? So when you check out, you use the promo code Deeper Dive, one word. But if you go to awesemo.com/join and you scroll to the bottom, you'll see videos on all of our most popular tools, from the ownerships to the player projections, to our premium Slack chat where we're talking DFS around the clock and so much more. You can get a good idea of what you're buying before you jump in, so you don't feel uncomfortable doing so and opening up your wallet. We want you to know what you're getting before you dive in. So when you do that, you want to do it. I think you'll like it. You want to stick around. And when you make that decision, use the promo code Deeper Dive, one word. It'll get you 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum membership here at awesemo.com. Remember, awesemo.com/join. Use that promo code when you check out. All right, so here we go. This is the big one. Atlanta, Memphis. There's a lot to talk about here. Monster total on this slate. It's the highest of the night by 10 points, 240.5. Hawks laying 2 points at home, 121.3 implied total of every team on the slate. That is the highest. And the Memphis Grizzlies at 119.3 with the third highest. Houston sandwiched in between the Hawks and the Grizzlies. So let's go ahead and start with the Atlanta Hawks. We are not expecting Cam Reddish to play. Outside of that, Scala BCA, DeAndre Bembry are out. Dwayne Dedman is also out with that elbow injury. So there's a few notable bodies out and a few that really aren't that notable. But the Reddish news, the Dedman news moves things around a bit. We'll start with Trae Young. What are you thinking on Trae Young? He's 10-4 right now on DraftKings on FanDuel. He is 9,900.
I think he looks really good. On DraftKings, he's in that group of guys with Harden, Westbrook, Luka. I think Luka looks a little bit better, but Young is about the same as Harden and Westbrook for me. We've talked a lot that he's produced at an even higher rate when John Collins plays this year, averaging over 1.5 DraftKings points per minute. The assist percentage gets up north of 45%. Usage rate still is around 35% in games that Collins plays. And Memphis is a fast team. They've actually been efficient defensively, but they play at a fast pace. And if you look specifically at pick and roll, they're in the middle of the league in efficiency defending against pick and roll ball handlers. They've allowed the 10th most pick and roll possessions per game. So really the only defensive thing that I ever get overly concerned about with Trae Young is if you're talking about a team that actively forces pick and roll ball handlers to get rid of the ball, which Memphis hasn't. So I think the matchup looks fine for Young. The minutes look good. They've been down a little bit lately as far as you're not playing 40 minutes a night, but you should still expect 36, 37 if this game is competitive. So I think he looks good. Beyond that, even with Reddish out, I don't think that there's a whole lot to like on Atlanta. John Collins' price tag has started to come up. Reddish being out, I think, is actually a little bit of a negative for Collins because I haven't seen if we have a lineup yet, but I'm expecting Bruno Fernando to get back into the starting lineup, which would take a little bit away from Collins in terms of rebounds. Playing big minutes, still a decent spot, but the salary has come up. Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, I think are priced pretty much where they should be. Like there's a little bit of upside for them just because the game should be so fast paced. But I wouldn't say that they're priorities for me. So Young, I think, looks like the best guy from Atlanta by a pretty wide margin.
Any interest in Fernando? You have to assume that Joval is going to play pretty decent minutes at least, and he's one of the bigger centers.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Fernando is even in games he started, you're typically not getting more than 22 minutes, and he projects like a good point per dollar option at only 3,400. But when you factor in the opportunity cost of, obviously by definition, if you have Fernando, it means you are missing out on at least one of Valanciunas and Vooch. It's, I think, pretty tough to take on the opportunity cost there.
Do you think Jeff Teague benefits from Reddish being out?
I think he could get a few more minutes. I went from 18 to 22.
Bruno Fernando will start if Cam Reddish is ruled out. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, yeah. So I went from 18 to 22 minutes on Teague. I think that it would make sense for him to benefit a little bit, getting more minutes alongside Trae Young. At 3,300, it makes him a guy that you could use in large field tournaments. Still, obviously not someone that I'm getting to in my first couple of lineups.
Okay, so outside of Trae Young, you mentioned he's your clear favorite here. In a game that has such a huge total against the Memphis team that has been hit by pretty significant injuries, particularly defensively, are you prioritizing any other Atlanta Hawks today? Yes, Collins' price has come up. He's been playing good basketball though, and you have to assume he'll get a decent amount of minutes closer to the basket at the 5. Can you prioritize anyone outside of Trae?
I don't think prioritize, but definitely be mixing and matching these guys in your tournament lineups. Like, I don't think that there's one guy that you point to and say like, oh, this should be one of my 5 highest owned guys or anything, but you should have a lot of lineups probably that have one of, Hunter or Herter or take a shot on Jeff Teague or Collins or something, because there's going to be points in this game. It's just that there's no one outside of Young that stands out as really underpriced from a median standpoint.
All right, let's talk about Memphis. Start with Jonas Valanciunas. Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark, both of them remain sidelined. You're going to get a lot of ownership on Joval, no question. Right now, he's projected to be the highest owned player. I mentioned to Josh, we didn't have ownership, but I said I'd be surprised if he wasn't projecting as the highest overall owned player on DraftKings. I didn't know that he'd be 10% higher than the next closest player, but here it is. Meanwhile, Ja Morant is coming in at, that can't be right, 10% ownership on Ja Morant, 34% on Jonas Valanciunas.
I mean, I agree with Valanciunas being really, really popular. I think Morant should also have more ownership. But for whatever reason, it seems like people aren't really high on Morant. Like, he's low owned a lot. He was only 60.
I think maybe the fact that he's come up above 7K too doesn't really help.
Right. Like I was going to say, like I thought he'd be popular because he's playing the Hawks, but his salary jumped $1,000 since his last game. So either way, I'll be playing a lot of Morant. His minutes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wasn't enamored with him this morning because I thought he'd be very chalky. At 9% against the Hawks, that's crazy.
Right, and he clearly gives you upside for 50 plus points in
right.
the mid-range. If you look at his game logs, the minutes are kind of deceiving too, because Memphis has just been in a lot of blowouts lately. But in competitive games, you're typically seeing 33 to 35 minutes from Morant. So I don't really have any concerns there. The usage goes up a little bit without Jaren Jackson as well. So I think he looks really good, and I think Dylan Brooks looks really good, who is projected for more ownership than Morant.
I like Brooks.
He's really cheap. He gets a little bit of a usage bump without Jackson as well. You've seen the usage rate up above 26% over the last couple of months for Brooks. For the season, he's the second highest usage guy on the team behind Ja Morant. He played 40 minutes 2 games ago, played 34 or 36 minutes last game, and obviously should benefit from this matchup. So all 3 of those guys look like priorities for me. They all look like guys that I'll have a lot of. And then you also can get to a value guy like Kyle Anderson, who is only 4,400, has played more than 30 minutes each of the last 2 games. He's not overly productive. He doesn't do any one thing well, but he does contribute some rebounding, some assists, and just the pace of this game should give him, more opportunities.
So outside of those guys, is there, by the way, Anthony Tolliver is available to make his debut for whatever that's worth for Memphis. Do you have anybody else that rounds this game out that you want to hit on before we move on to the final 2?
I forgot to mention Melton, same category as Kyle Anderson, expecting around 26 minutes from him. His rates take a hit because of playing alongside Morant and Brooks, but he's still going to be on the floor for mid to upper 20s in minutes against the Hawks.
Dallas and Chicago, Zach LaVine doubtful to play. That's huge news there. The injuries have been crazy with Chicago, and they list everybody, and you get a barrage of tweet notifications every single day, which is just ridiculous. But Lauri Markkanen was doubtful. He's now out. Zach LaVine not expected to play. Chandler Hutchison remains out. But then you've got Otto Porter in the lineup, limited to 15, 20 minutes. Wendell Carter Jr. is starting. So you get some reinforcements here. Kobe White, what an interesting play he is, though, Adam. I know they're big dogs here, but I got to tell you, I mentioned this like a week or so ago. I'm really liking what I've seen from Kobe White. And when this guy's firing away, he has the upside to drop 50 fantasy points, which he did in back-to-back games against the Wizards and Thunder. Thoughts on Kobe White at $5,800 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel you've got him at $6,200.
I think he's risky, but the upside's enormous.
Yeah, absolutely.
The minutes should be there, and his numbers with and without Zach LaVine this year are pretty staggering. Like, he's averaged 0.75 DraftKings points per minute with Zach LaVine on the floor. He's averaged 1.01 without LaVine. He's played about the same number of minutes. The usage rate without LaVine is 27.9%. And the big thing is that the assist percentage without LaVine on the floor jumps to 20.2%. The thing that I think is scary, though, so on one hand, it's really good because there's just no high usage guys on the Bulls without Zach LaVine. So Kobe White should be able to shoot as much as he wants. The scary part is that he is playing a Dallas team that Carlisle generally does a pretty good job of scheming to take away the primary scorer. I don't know if he'll bother with Kobe White in this game, but if he does, you could certainly see a situation where Dallas just forces someone else to score points. So I think he's risky. The salary has come up a little bit, but that being said, the minutes should be there. The opportunity should be there. So, it's someone I'm definitely going to be roster.
Yeah, I have a lot of interest. There's just no one else. Now, would Carlisle be wise to do that? Sure. Is he a good coach? Yes. But like you said, do you need the scheme to take him away? Maybe. If you do, though, I still expect the usage to be up. And keep this in mind, that those rates without LaVine are for the season, right? Those are for the season.
Yeah.
Recently, he's been a lot more involved offensively. So I would expect 30+% usage tonight. And I'd feel pretty confident about that. Also, even if it's around 27, he's playing huge minutes. For him, 33, 34 minutes a night. It's just a spot that's very difficult for me to ignore. The rest of Chicago, however, a little bit dicier because a lot of these guys just aren't going to get a lot of minutes out of. Many of them are cheap, but like, how many minutes are you going to get from Wendell Carter Jr.? Otto Porter, we already know he's going to be limited. Shaq Harrison, like, what are you doing with the rest of Chicago not named Kobe White?
I think it's it's not a spot where you're going to feel very comfortable because on one hand, you obviously have really, really cheap plays in Shaq Harrison. For one, he's projected for a lot of ownership. Denzel Valentine's getting some ownership, but you have Carter coming back. He played 18 minutes last game. I have him in for 24 today. I haven't seen a number. I'm expecting, low to mid 20s from him. You have the 16 to 20 minute limit from Porter. So that at least soaks up some of the minutes that LaVine is leaving. Shaq Harrison started the last game, only played about 13 and a half minutes. We've seen Boylen not be in any sort of hurry to give Shaq Harrison big minutes. And he doesn't have to today either, with Porter soaking up some minutes, with Denzel Valentine being back, with Adam Makoka still being in the rotation. So I have Harrison in for like 22 minutes. I have him at like 20 DraftKings points, but it just wouldn't be surprising at all to see his minutes go to anyone else just based on how little Boylen has seemed interested in playing him.
I'm with you. Maybe you, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, you can mix and match a little bit. Now that's a spot where you absolutely have to set groups.
Yeah, I don't want more than one of Harrison or Denzel Valentine.
No way.
Or Arcidiacono.
Or Arcidiacono, or really any of those wings. What about Dallas? Luka Doncic for me, strong play. Chat's been talking about the hand recently, that he's still dealing with an injury, but I'm not overly concerned about that. Kristaps Porzingis is out. So just quickly tell me where you're at for the Mavs.
Luka looks like a top option on the play. Obviously the hand is at least somewhat of a concern, but it is his left hand, and more importantly, you don't have Kristaps Porzingis, so you're getting just a little bit of increased usage, a little bit of an increase in rebounding, and he's really inexpensive. He's only 10-3 on DraftKings. He's 10-4 on FanDuel. So you're not talking about paying a premium for Luka. You're not talking about him being the same price point as Giannis. You're talking about him being the same price point as a bunch of guys that he produces at a higher per minute rate than. So I think Luka looks great. We have Seth Curry questionable. If he's out, it would open up more minutes for the other guards. It would be a pretty messy
because Brunson's
situation.
out as well for the year.
Right. Yeah, so it would open up more for probably Courtney Lee.
No, I'm sorry, not the year, but he's out.
Yeah, DeLon Wright, potentially Barea. And with Porzingis out, I'm expecting 30 to 32 minutes from Kleba, and then Cauley Stein to get the backup center minutes.
Okay. Steve-O, appreciate that super chat as always, man. He asked a question that many are wondering, straight up, Trae Young or Luka Doncic, Adam?
Luka.
Okay.
Not by a lot, but Luka.
Okay. Let's go ahead and close this out. Hey, by the way, if you enjoy the show, you know this, but if you're new, the easiest way that you can help support us in the channel and the site is hit that thumbs up button and like the video. We appreciate it every time you take that action to help us out. And don't forget, all of our shows are available in podcast form and any of your favorite podcast platforms. And if you haven't left a comment yet, or a review, I should say, do that. Subscribe to the channel, leave a review, and you're entered to win. You got to put your username in there. You have to put your username so we know who you are. I forget, what is it? DraftKings username? I don't even remember, man. I'm stupid. Hold on a second. You have to put I'm good at this, right? Yeah. Okay. Your Awesemo Plus username or your Twitter handle, and you're entered to win a free month of Awesemo Plus monthly pass. So go ahead and do that. Any of the podcast platforms. San Antonio and Indiana, we're running short up against it here. Live before lock coming up next. But fortunately, this isn't exactly a game that has mass appeal. So I'll let you close it out on both sides, and then we'll turn it over to the fellas at LBL.
Yeah, so I mean, the front court for San Antonio with Aldridge and Poeltl out is interesting. You got 40 minutes last game from Trey Lyles. You got 30 minutes from Rudy Gay. Their prices came up, but they're still cheap enough where there is some appeal there. I am still not projecting Gay for 30 minutes. I'll be at around 26 to 28. I'll be at like 32 for Trey Lyles. So they look like secondary value options there. Gay a little bit more appealing since he's cheaper. Eubank started the second half last game. I assume he starts today, but it's entirely possible that they start like Lonnie Walker and slide Lyles to the 5. DeRozan, I think, still underpriced. It's not a good matchup against Indiana, but he does get a bump without LaMarcus Aldridge in terms of usage. So I still think that he's a pretty good value just because of the increased usage. On the other side for Indiana, I don't see a whole lot to really like in the context of the slate. Like Brogdon is fine, but I would much rather roster John Morant. Sabonis is fine, but I'd much rather go to someone like Vooch at the same price point.
So with Oladipo out, which he is, does that change anything for you in terms of appeal?
Not really.
Pacers Twitter handle, by the way.
No, not really.
Okay. So anything else from this game?
Nope.
Top play from both sides or either side. It could be just one.
DeRozan or Gay.
All right. And you're definitely setting, I don't know if they'll show up anyway, but you want to be very careful that you're not getting a bunch of these San Antonio wings in your lineup when they're going to cannibalize each other's minutes in production. That'll do it for us. Thanks for hanging out. As always, good luck tonight. Appreciate you making us a part of your evening routine and your daily routine here at Awesemo. Hopefully someone takes something big down and can brag about it tomorrow. Stick around. Live before locks coming up next. This is the Deeper Dive presented by
SuperDraft.
up, guys? We should be starting up now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Awesemo.com Live Before Lock show. Got ourselves a 7-game slate today, which is not lacking for injuries and news already out there. And as we all know how it goes, maybe some more news to come throughout the course of this hour. I'm Chris Spags, joined once again by my Monday partner, the Chubster, Josh Engelman. How you doing, Josh?
Never better. All I see is a message in chat saying fade Josh, but guess what? I'm here.
No, don't fade Josh. I think normally go with Josh has been a great move. You've been watching his video, The Contenders, recently. Another great short form video we have on the channel alongside my four corners. We got a lot of great takes from Josh. So I'll defend you to the death for this 1 minute interval here. You know what else I'll defend to the death, Josh? I'll defend the future of DFS. I will gladly hold my shield up for the fine folks over at SuperDraft. Josh?
SuperDraft.
There you go. gotta get it in now. Now you have a bit that we got to hit every time, and you might even end up in a SuperDraft ad for them. Hopefully, at one point, that'd be great for you. But either way, it's great for the viewers out there to go to SuperDraft.io and use the promo code Awesemo10. If you do that right now, you get $10 free without even depositing anything. $20 with less than $100, and $30 for over $100 deposited on there. That money goes right into your account right away in Super Cash. There's not a SuperDraft show tonight. Their slate locks at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So get in there now. We talked about it at great length on Friday. The amount of overlay and money they're just giving away every single day as they try to get new users in is pretty pronounced. So go check it out right now at superdraft.io. Use that promo code Awesemo10. $10 with no deposit, $20 with less than $100 deposited, and $30 free with over $100 right now. So check them all out. And I guess, Josh, we're not doing the Super Draft show. Who's your number one Super Draft play for the folks out there right now?
Number one Super Draft play right now is CJ McCollum, and it's not close.
Ooh, CJ. Okay, let me see. Actually, curious what the boss man has. Our Super Draft projections also from Awesemo are free today. He has CJ McCollum as well as the top pick. So check out the link in the chat. I'm popping in the YouTube chat right now.
Great minds.
What's that?
Great minds think alike.
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, great. As always, you and Awesemo have been in lockstep on Super Draft, but check out that link in the chat right now. There's the free Super Draft projections today. So go take advantage of them and go to superdraft.io and use that promo code Awesemo10. All right, Josh, I got a question for you here up top. Actually, I know you mentioned you teased you're going to give your final top 10 for the contenders. So do you want to get that out of the way first, and then we can kind of maybe dig into some of them?
Yes, I can actually.
We don't have to. We could. I'm just throwing out ideas here.
I will do that. Give me 1 minute. I just have to take Victor Oladipo out, and I'm already in the middle of it. So once I finish that,
yeah, so
I don't think it's going to matter to anything that I'm doing, but I just have like a giant hole in their minutes right now that I need to correct.
So Oladipo is out. I guess while you do that, real fast, some of the guys that we already know are out. Aaron Gordon's been ruled out. Victor Oladipo just ruled out. Chris Middleton came through. Will play today as we expected. It is going to be Kristaps Porzingis resting for Dallas. So we're going to have Luka Doncic in there, who is available today. Zach LaVine, doubtful right now. Probably going to be treating him as though he's out throughout the course of this show. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I haven't hit on. Oh, and of course, the Cavs centers both out. Andre Drummond and Tristan Thompson both out. So we'll be talking a lot of Larry Nance as well. And did that buy enough time to get to your top 10?
Not even remotely close. Speaking of Larry Nance, boy, do I have quite a bit of him. Whew.
So is he the guy, I guess, before we get to your top 10 then, we'll tease it out then. We'll do the top 10 as soon as Josh has it. But Larry Nance, theoretically getting a pretty big minutes boost here. The price is pretty low. Tough matchup against Utah, but I do think he's stylistically, the way that he plays, the high energy way, kind of going to be a gnat, annoying Rudy Gobert, drawing him out of the paint a little bit more. I think making it equally difficult and annoying for him today. But I like Larry Nance as well. I'm heavy on him. Would you say that he's the guy you find to be the most important play amongst all the injury affected guys?
He's certainly the guy that I have the most.
Okay. Yeah. Hard to argue.
All right. Top 10 plays right now for contenders. Have not looked at this yet, so we'll see. Larry Nance. Let me see if this is actually on the screen so people can see it. It is. Right now I've got Nance. He's first on FanDuel and Draftkings. Joval, Vooch, Luka, Morant, Trae Young, Aaron Holiday, which I'm going to look into at least a little bit with Victor Oladipo out, James Harden, Kevin Huerter, and Dillon Brooks.
That was 1 to 10, right?
1 to 10, yeah.
Okay.
Dillon Brooks is more DraftKings than FanDuel. That's the only one that I really need to point out. But now I just need to look in to see if I have like Aaron Holiday like dramatically over projected or something.
Yeah, Aaron Holiday popping up there does seem a bit odd given all the other guys in there, but more minutes to go around again with Oladipo out. So I get that. And, maybe as you're messing around with your various stuff, that'll change a little bit here.
With Oladipo out on the 23rd and the 25th, Aaron Holiday played 32 minutes and 29 minutes. He is San Antonio Spurs. 36, so $100 above the minimum on FanDuel, $3,900 on DraftKings. Yeah, I think he just might be like okay value, but I probably have him slightly overprojected. He's been playing pretty bad as of late.
Okay, no, that does seem to make sense. And as I just saw right now, also we got an ownership and not ownership, projections update. So all the minutes in there, which I'm trying to paste in right now, if it'll paste in correctly for me and help me out. So that should be accounting for the Oladipo news, and ownership, I'm sure as well, will be coming in not too long of a time here. Actually, there we go, 11 seconds ago. So
look at that,
man. I might have magic powers.
You spoke that into existence.
I know I really did. I think I just willed that. I shamed somebody by just mentioning it. But ownership updates, actually, I guess a quick take on them, because these are going to be, I think, a little bit changed. Jonas Valanciunas now the top owned player on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it looks like it'll be Nikola Vucevic. Number 2 on DraftKings is Nikola Vucevic. And number 2 on FanDuel's Trey Lyles. Curious your thoughts on Trey Lyles. I ended up with less of him than I thought I was going to have, but the fact that he played 40 minutes last game just jumped off the page to me. But no Pirtle, no Aldridge in again. Do you think Lyles can possibly get that much run, or even let's say 35 minutes? Or do you think things are going to be different here for San Antonio today?
He's like my second favorite power forward. The problem is that I prefer Larry Nance for $600 more. So it's easier to slightly pay up and go to John Collins or Kevin Love or Randall or something than have to go to Lyles. But I mean, he's a fantastic value on FanDuel at 4,300. On DK, where he's 48, he's just sort of in the pack of decent guys for me.
Okay, yeah. The $4,800 price, certainly not the best, but I mean, he was over 1 fantasy point per minute against Orlando in that last game, playing the 40. I'm going to have less of him than I thought I would in the morning, just because of the other options that open up, in particular Nance as well on DraftKings. But I do think he's a guy that's now going to be a little bit overlooked and under-owned. And I think people may be questioning him on the per-minute numbers. But I feel like you just can't go off Lyles' per-minute numbers for the most part, because he's seen so few minutes without either Pirtle or without Aldridge on the floor. It's possible to me. I think we see the older Trey Lyles, who was a really good per-minute guy, was over a fantasy point per minute in Denver, Utah, a lot of the other stops.
I expect him to succeed. He should certainly get enough minutes. He would look dramatically different on FanDuel if this Larry Nance business wasn't going down. Although Larry Nance also not getting... we have Larry Nance and Trey Lyles projected for the same amount of ownership. If that happens, people are making gigantic mistakes by not having more Larry Nance.
Okay, so you would say that Larry Nance far better for priority on both sites, or just on FanDuel in particular?
So on FanDuel, I have Larry Nance projected significantly more than Trey Lyles, and I have less points going to Nance than Alex does. Alex has 10 full points for Nance above Trey Lyles. I don't even see them as even remotely comparable. On DK, it's Nance by miles.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Nance, I do think him getting the run, his price being where it is, he's not priced up for that hot run he was having off the bench where he just kept finding his way to minutes. That's come down on DraftKings. So, yeah, I'm there with it. I think it's a very valuable play to have Larry Nance tonight, and I'm actually going to be above the field on Nance, which is never good, because Larry Nance chalk, that is a thing that can be harrowing occasionally, though this year I do think it's been probably better than it has been the last couple of years.
Yeah, I had 100% on my last go.
We're talking Cleveland, so I'm curious your thoughts as well. Kevin Porter is a guy who projects well for the boss man, really does pop off the page. And the deeper dive guys talked about it a little bit. They're trying to get him more ball handling time. The usage has been there. Seems like he's one of the top minutes projected guys on the slate overall. How are you feeling about Kevin Porter as a semi-value play, but a guy who it does seem like is going to project well for a lot of people?
So on FanDuel right now, I'm mostly just neutral to the field. I'm still making some tweaks. I'm a fan. I have him projected less than Alex does right now, and I'm still getting to the same as the public. So I have a sneaky suspicion that I'm just going to bump him up slightly to get a little bit more. I think he's just going to play a really staggering amount of minutes, and it would be weird to not want to be on that dude.
Yeah, no, I think that seems fair. The minutes certainly be there. One would think he also gets some blowout run if that game does get out of hand, which, who knows? We know hard to predict a blowout, but Still a spot here where Porter does have a lot of game scripts that involve him getting a lot of minutes as well as usage. Darius Garland, of course, also out for Cleveland today, because I don't think I mentioned that one up top. Who else do you think is getting a boost here in Cleveland? Because I do have Kevin Love getting some upticks as well. Colin Sexton, I know you're generally not the hugest fan of him, as most fantasy players aren't. I tend to be a little bit less averse just because the usage is there for him, but I'm getting a little bit of him, getting some Love, getting pretty much all the core guys. Not really getting any Chetty at all for whatever reason.
Yeah, no Chetty for me as well. Nance is the key piece. Porter would be second. I'd say Sexton and Kevin Love are basically like a coin flip for me. Sexton's going to definitely, you would expect Sexton to definitely play more minutes than Kevin Love. Love makes it back a little bit by being just simply more productive. So I see them as relatively comparable. I don't have much of a difference in either one of them. They're guys that I'm going to have, that's for sure. 15, 20%.
Let's jump back to San Antonio first. Actually, no, I want to ask you this question because I know you guys talked about Rudy Gobert a little bit on the strategy show, I believe, this morning. Is Gobert a guy that you're getting today? Because I know you generally do get him on some of these weird center slates. And for me, I just worry a little bit about the matchup. I thought he was a good play going against Drummond. Are they going with the way they're going to have things today where Nance is going to be a little bit outside of the paint for the most part? Love as well. I don't see them both being in the paint, just clogging it up as Drummond would have been. I think that's worse for Gobert, but do you like him today? Whereas, price still works, but I just a little bit less bullish on him than I would have been earlier.
Yeah, not really. He was a guy that I only got 5% of on my last go round, and that is like 1/3 of where the public is on FanDuel. For me, it's just I see Vooch and Joval on just like a completely different level right now. So those guys are soaking it up dramatically. So instead of, we're projecting them for 56% total ownership. I had them at 90.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. No, I get that. Joval and Vooch, I think, are hard for me to ignore on DraftKings today. I feel like Joval, Vooch, and Nance are really three guys I'm considering really core plays for me, which I don't mind getting as much as I can get of. Another guy who is a core play for me, it looks like right now, DeMar DeRozan. Spiked the big upside day against Dallas, had a down one over the weekend against Orlando. The usage wasn't there in a particularly meaningful way, but on the year, about 30% usage, a little bit over that without Aldridge on the floor. It does seem like this match against Indiana is not great, but the price on DraftKings, I'm there with the modest upticks he gets and everything. Is DeRozan a core play for you today, or is he somebody that you're willing to get away from?
I'm actually pretty light on him now. A little surprised by that too. I'm getting just like staggering amounts of Kevin Huerter, and that happens a lot, which doesn't make me feel all that happy. DeRozan 7,500 on FanDuel. That's a scary price tag for me, especially in a spot where it's not like going up against Indiana is like a great DFS game. So I'm not mad about not being there. I'm a little scared, but I'm happy to be not there all that much. He's just not like shooting guard's kind of like weirdly deep but murky. So for now, I'm not a DeRozan guy.
Okay, that's fair. I want to know your thoughts, some other guys that we have, but guys, hit that like button. And if you want to get all the data we're using today, because it's a really valuable day to have the Awesemo projections as well as the ownership projections. Not that every day isn't, but today in particular, with all the moving pieces, can be kind of hard to keep track of everything. So use the promo code live before lock right now to get half off your first week of any of our weekly packages at awesemo.com/join. Go take advantage of it because they're getting updated. They're coming hot off the presses pretty frequently right now, it looks like. And hopefully no crazy news comes. I want to know your thoughts on Orlando. Oh, also Otto Porter will play off the bench Monday. Denzel Valentine starting for Zach LaVine. And also Zach LaVine officially out.
Yikes.
Oh, Denzel Valentine's going to screw up everything. I like him a lot. I like him a lot as a player generally. Interesting.
Okay, well, let's start here. Why in the world do you like Denzel Valentine a lot as a player?
So here's the thing.
Are you wearing a Paxton mask right now? You Gar Foreman?
There was one day where he shot, I feel like he made 8 threes either last season or the season before last where nobody had him, and I had him just way too much for whatever reason. Could have been me being an idiot or just me just lucking into it. But ever since then, I've been like, Denzel Valentine can really shoot threes. and in my heart, I want him to get a shot to do it. This year too, shooting perfectly fine. Been hurt more than not. I feel like the injuries have really submarined his career, but he's been a dude who was part of the Bulls' plans before. Like, I think him getting a shot to pick up usage here. I like guys like Satoransky a lot today, just because I think he'll be a guy who doesn't get the defensive attention in that first unit. But I don't know. I just feel like it's a pretty good spot for him to get going. But do you have any read on Denzel Valentine as well as Shaq Harrison, Satoransky, Kobe White? Could be very chalky today. Any read on these guys?
Be happier to not have any of these morons. No, I mean, Denzel Valentine is starting and he is the flat minimum on DraftKings. You're going to have a difficult time not getting to him at least a little bit. Should be decent value. Hasn't been good this season, but I have him as like a 0.94 fantasy points per minutes guy. So I think that's reasonable. How many minutes can he handle? I'm not entirely sure. I just gave him 22, at which point I think that getting to him at 3K is fine. I would rather get to Denzel Valentine over Shaq Harrison in this scenario.
Oh, yeah, so Rinpack just gave me the line or tagged me in the line on the Snapchat. Of course, Rinpack, the Snapchat. Rinpack is not sending me Snapchat. He is sending me Slack chats, though. Denzel Valentine, one game, 2018, which Rinpack pulled up alarmingly fast. So thank you, Rinpack. Put up a bunch of fantasy points, shot 8 for 11 from deep, 13 for 20 from the floor, 23% usage in 38 minutes. So that's the one that jumped out to me. I think he's a guy who's actually got some talent if he gets run, and if he's getting that Zach LaVine run, like it's not like Shaq Harrison's going to take a ton of that run away from him or a ton of that opportunity away in that first unit. And same thing with Satoransky, he'll take a little bit more, but not a ton. So I think there's room for Valentine to be useful.
Yeah, I think you're dramatically overrating him. Here's a question for you. Who's older, Shaq Harrison or Denzel Valentine?
Denzel, probably.
So Denzel Valentine, they're both 26. Okay. And they're both a month apart. Shaq Harrison is 1 month older than Denzel Valentine. He came out, the Bulls should have never drafted him. He came out old, and he's just been rotting away as a completely injured dude over and over again. Either way, he's starting and he's the flat minimum. You gotta pay attention to guys like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's under a fantasy point per minute this year. I think that's been pretty close to where he's been, though. Again, he's been hurt a lot this year as well as last year. Just to clarify, you did say you would go Denzel over Shaq, though?
Yes.
Okay. And you wouldn't have any Otto Porter. Somebody asked you, Wendell Carter, about your interest on FanDuel.
None.
But I'm not wildly overrating him, by the way. To be clear, Denzel Valentine's not like a good player, but he's like a $4,500 player if he's getting regular minutes in a rotation, I would think. He's like Dylan Brooks, but more hurt.
Whoa, no.
You're gonna tell me Dylan Brooks is good. Dylan Brooks just shoots 25 times a game.
Dylan Brooks just signed a contract extension for something pretty tasty.
That doesn't mean he's good.
Sure it does.
Anyway, yeah, it's really like Jerome James. Like when the Knicks signed him to a big contract, that meant that he turned it around.
Yeah, that's the Knicks.
I think you can't speculatively put that on people.
Oh, wait,
either way.
Wait, Shaq is also starting? Satoransky, Satoransky, Valentine, Harrison, Young, Carter. Okay. Fucking Bulls. So it's interesting that Shaq Harrison is starting, and they're not going with like Archie to really just screw the pooch here. Oh. Okay, so with them both starting, I prefer Shaq Harrison.
Okay.
Because he's just...
By a lot?
No. I don't know how many minutes Denzel Valentine can play. It's not exactly like he's been healthy a lot. I can't imagine
I think he
he's
played
in
like 12 last game.
I can't imagine he's in like the greatest shape in the world. So
Denzel Valentine known for his great conditioning. That's what all of his Valentine stands have talked about.
I prefer Shaq Harrison to Denzel Valentine now that they are both starting. I have no idea what these guys are going to do from a minutes perspective.
Do you think the run gets more? I mean, you just said it, but do you think the run gets more secure? Because we know Porter's supposed to play 16 to 20. Now we know he's playing them off the bench. So it does seem like you should be getting regular rotations from Shaq. And that's a pretty big deal because at least the last game, probably the last few games when he started, he didn't even play second half or second quarter stints or fourth quarter stints. He just played one run per half. They move away from Shaq a lot, where I don't feel the most comfortable with Shaq's minutes, but
I think you just want to be really smart about setting your rules. because it's not like we're just replacing Zach LaVine here. So by all accounts, everybody is just going to say like, okay, we're going to project Zach LaVine for 36 minutes. But we only need to really replace 18 of those. Because Otto Porter is just slipping into half of that. So you can just scatter a little bit of that to Archie and Shaq and Denzel Valentine and Adam Makoka and just call it a day. And I don't think that there's any reason that we should be comfortable that any one of those guys are like a particularly firm part of their closing lineup. So Satoransky, Thad Young, just full stop going to be in the closing lineup. After that, like, they're probably just going to figure it out on the fly. Kobe White, you would expect to also be in that closing lineup. So it's going to be some sort of combo of Valentine, Archie, Shaq, depending on how many minutes Wendell Carter can play. Wendell Carter. I wouldn't get too comfortable with any one of these guys from Chicago.
But you would definitely mix them in because of there being 2 minimum price starters in the mix.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't have some Shaq Harrison or Denzel Valentine, but if either one of those gets like really crazy projected, I would just try to temper my expectations on that.
Okay, that seems fair. The rest of the Bulls here. So Satoransky did jump out to me as getting pretty decent boosts in minutes without LaVine and Markkanen. Certainly not, the most stable thing, though I do feel a little bit better about that, the way that I ran it through Wowie, just because I thought Otto Porter being in the starting lineup might change that materially, but he does get boosts in rebounds, assists, and usage enough that are appreciable to me. Are you getting, I guess, any of these other Bulls? Are you getting the Kobe Whites or Satos? I mean, do you view them as being positive? I would think that Kobe White now being next to Porter for at least a little bit of his run off the bench makes him a slightly less appealing, but I'm curious your thoughts.
I like Satoransky more than I like White. It's pretty close. But Satoransky would be the only guy that I would get to with any sort of volume. I wouldn't have Kobe White. Not like 23% like we're projecting.
Okay, so you would have him much lower than the field, but you like if he got some in lineups, it wouldn't be the worst thing.
No, not at all. Look, he's gonna play a buttload of minutes, and he's not exactly expensive. 5,800 is not crazy. So like he's not a guy that I would mind showing up in my lineups. I'm surprised he's as chalky as he is.
I mean, he was having some good days with LaVine in the mix. So I get the thought process people would put themselves on where you're like, oh yeah, he's been good with LaVine. He'll be even better without LaVine. I just think that's a little bit of a slippery slope, especially with Porter now playing in that same group. Porter, not a high usage guy, but even if he carves a little bit more away than Kobe's getting that usual second group, I think it does make it a bit tougher for him. But somebody asked about Wendell Carter Jr. on FanDuel before, and I was going to ask you about it. We kind of talked about all these other guys, but I wouldn't play him because he's on a minutes limit. But how do you feel about Wendell Carter on FanDuel? I just want to confirm your thoughts there.
No, there's too many decent center options to pay down for him today on a day where that like there's basically no chance of him playing 30 minutes. I don't really see the point.
Also, the people in the premium Slack, I didn't know there were this many Dylan Brooks fans. Like Dylan Brooks, a fine play against Atlanta, but he's shooting like 40% from the floor, and it just keeps getting worse by the day. I'm not a big Dylan Brooks guy. I don't think that's
he should be
craziest take. Whatever. I just didn't know that would be the take. People were like, whoa, all right, watch out with your Dylan Brooks slander. That's not the one. It's not the hill I'd want to die on, but whatever. Let's go to Orlando because this is another important lineup for me. So a guy who got a pretty big boost from no Gordon and Isaac that surprised me more than I guess I would have thought. Markelle Fultz seems like he's been kind of lost in the sauce recently with just getting Augustine back in there. Gordon doing a little more of his own rebounding, taking the ball up court and assisting and doing all that, which is part of why Gordon was on such a hot run recently before, I guess, that Spurs game, and now he's hurt. So maybe correlated there. But I do think Fultz is a guy who's not going to be owned for the boost he's getting. Fournier, too, really looks like even less owned than Fultz. Are you getting the Magic guys? I know we talked about Vooch. Vooch, to me, is a core play. I'm going to have more than the field, even though he's chalky. But Fournier, Fultz, Terrence Ross, Augustine, even Gary Clark or James Ennis, who do you think gets a boost here, and who are you getting more of with Orlando?
Vooch, for sure, is the guy that I like the most out of everybody here. I'll probably have a little bit of Fultz and Ross on FanDuel. I'm not as enthusiastic about any of these guys on DraftKings. The guy that I would probably get the most is James Ennis, and that makes me sick.
We talked about James Ennis recently. I mean, he does, he does pick up some of that usage without Aaron Gordon. He's been shooting a little more in Orlando, but yeah, nice price on him. I will give him that. That's about all I think you could say.
It's yuck, man. It's yucky.
Less yucky or more yucky than Denzel Valentine?
I would rather have. That's a really good question. I would probably rather have James Ennis because he could play like a stupid amount of minutes.
Okay, that's fair.
At the same time, being 3K is so meaningful on DK. It's probably Valentine.
Yeah. All right. We're getting some Valentine wins now. We're racking them up bit by bit.
I would rather just have that extra $900 on it. I don't think that either one of these guys are particularly good. So
fair. All right. I'll allow it. I've made my Valentine case. We need to talk about him forever, but I will say I'm going to get some Valentine today, and I think everybody should get just a little bit of Denzel, just a little bit.
I mean, people are going to get a little bit of them. That's for sure.
So you're not getting much of Fultz, Ross, Fournier. Those guys are mostly going overlooked. You're just taking the Vooch rebounding and usage bump for no Gordon.
Yeah, Fultz and Ross are both like 10 to 15% owned right now, and I'm figuring I get something in that neighborhood as well.
Okay, that seems fair. Let's keep going here. I'm trying to think I guess let's talk Luka. Let's talk about that spot because Luka's a guy I just find it hard to believe he's failing, though I do think there are enough guys in the 5 to 8K range that I like that I don't feel like I have to get to Luka, but I just think he's a guy, if I can get there, I want to. Does get a usage uptick, rebounding uptick. I think a little bit less assists on paper, but I don't see that being a meaningful thing for him. Chicago does play slow, but where are you landing with Luka? He's projected for 20% ownership on DraftKings, and I don't have his FanDuel in front of me.
I had 41% on my last crunch. I've got 41% of Luka, 44% of Ja, and 31% of Trae Young. So I'm paying up Ja's not exactly the same sort of pay up option, but I'm paying up for Luka and Trae Young and not paying up for Russell Westbrook. I am paying up a little bit for James Harden.
Okay. I was going to say, do you also feel like Westbrook and Harden are overlooked? Because Westbrook has been playing really well, 60 fantasy points his last two. Harden does project better for me, but I do think those guys probably going overlooked because of the Luka and Trae love, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Russ just not projecting very well for me for today's spot. I'm a little surprised by it, but I think it's just sort of the way that point guard breaks down.
People are asking, too, your thoughts on Finney Smith. I know Maxi Kleber was a popular question before. I think people really trying to target the DVP matchup against Chicago has been terrible on the inside. That would be my guess. But also some opportunity opened up without Porzingis. I would personally more inclined to get Kleber than to get to Finney Smith. But price of Finney Smith, is pretty low everywhere. So any other Dallas guys popping for you at all?
No, I have a minimal amount of Maxi on FanDuel, like 8%. I don't have any Dorian Finney-Smith. It's mostly just Luka.
Okay. That seems fair. Here's a question from Tony. Since this has been the Shaq and Valentine variety hour. Shaq and Valentine, would you play them paired or would you use one of them with Gary Clark?
Oh my God. I'd probably mass withdraw from everything if those were my final questions. I wouldn't play him with Gary Clark. I wouldn't play Gary Clark.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not playing Gary Clark either. Just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah.
Also, Super Chat right now still looking like it's trending towards having overlay, and we are trying to do our best to make sure you guys take advantage of that when you can. The jump shot tournament today, 6K up top to first place, and there are still about 1,500 entries left. So about half an hour. Again, the slate lock, 7 p.m. Eastern time today. Super Draft projections are free. I'll drop them in the chat one more time for you guys. But take advantage of it. There's been so much money. On Thursday, there was like 3K they had to play pretty much out of their pocket to the people in the field there. Definitely savings on rake on Super Draft recently. So check them out. And definitely a chance here that you guys get some free money at play in that tournament. Cam Reddish also officially ruled out. So Bruno Fernando should start there. Do you think Bruno Fernando is in play now?
No.
Okay. Wanted to confirm. All right. And we'll keep you guys updated too with Super Draft. If it does look like it's really going to overlay, we'll let you guys know about 10 minutes before lock. But there's a 7 p.m. lock on there, so go check them out right now. Again, 1,500 entries left to fill there, and they've been giving up a lot of money to the folks out there. All right, let's keep going. I guess we got to talk Memphis and Atlanta because this is one game we haven't talked about really at all, I guess, other than talk about this Cam Reddish news being out officially. What are you going to get now with Reddish out? Does anybody besides Herter take a jump for you? DeAndre Hunter is a guy who's been looking better over the last maybe 2 months or so, but whenever there's a little bit of a usage bump there for him, he's been coming through for the most part. I don't mind him. Got him in a few lineups. Herter as well. I'm with you on him. Trae Young, John Collins, not getting as much as I would like of, but they look fine to me. And Jeff Teague theoretically could see some minutes as well as the aforementioned Bruno Fernando. What Hawks are in play to you tonight? In a really high total game against Memphis, 240 combined points there.
Hawks, Trae Young, a little bit over the field. John Collins, neutral. A bit over the field on Herter, and then neutral on DeAndre Hunter. So those are the only 4 Hawks that I have.
Would you say no to Collins?
I have Collins. I'm just neutral to the field right now.
Got it. Okay. And let's
we just got an ownership update right now. So
yep. Put that in too. And again,
take a look at that.
If you want them ownership updates for yourself, use that promo code live before lock right now. Denzel Valentine chalk on DraftKings. Okay.
Wait, really?
You think that was all because of me mentioning that one box score?
I mean, he's 21% owned? Not even chalk.
He's the 3rd most owned on DK.
The way you said it made me think that when I looked at it, it was going to be 50.
No, but a jump from 0 to 21 is still noteworthy.
Of course, a jump from 0. Nobody's going to own Denzel Valentine before that news.
I considered it.
No comment.
Thought it was a thought.
No comment.
Here, let's burn through these questions.
I'll say this much.
Yeah.
It makes me slightly more interested in Shaq Harrison, but at the same time, there's really no difference between 21% owned Denzel Valentine and 13% Shaq Harrison. So I guess that's not really true.
I think you might have said it, but would you play them together or no?
I can't imagine that I would want to. I mean, yes, because the rules that I would set up would probably be like max to... You know what? I would probably say no. I don't think that I would play them together.
Okay.
I'm not sure that they close together. I'd be surprised if they close together.
If the game were out of hand, I would think they would.
If the game's out of hand, who the hell knows is going to play for the Bulls?
All right. That's a fair response to it.
Like, if it's out of hand, I assume Adam Makoka is out there, at which point, like, there's one other spot. I don't think that I would want to play them both. I think there's enough value out there where you don't have to do that.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. I think Denzel has a better chance of closing just because Boylan probably hasn't seen enough of him where it does seem like he's kind of made up his mind on Shaq and tries to find ways to not play him.
I'd rather have Denzel Washington.
Somebody said that in the chat too, and I disagree.
No.
I mean, if he's playing like in He Got Game, then yeah. But if he's just regular, if he's current Denzel Washington, I think that's not it.
My man.
Spags is on shrooms. Ryan, no offense, I don't think you know how shrooms work at all.
Also, I would be so bummed that you didn't tell me that you did that first so that I could have joined you on that journey.
If I were on shrooms, I would be in abject terror questioning my life choices based upon the last time I did shrooms.
Oh, man, I would love the colors on my screen right now.
Yeah, like a micro dose would be nice. A full dose would not be a wise move before hosting a show. That much I can tell you.
I mean, they're pretty easy to handle.
No, tough. Well, tell that to past me from a couple of years ago.
Tell that to me when I thought that I was able to control whether or not my body lived or died. I thought I could turn it off like a light switch.
Classic shroom stick.
Yeah. Anyway.
Here, Morgan asking on the premium Slack, do you think we need at least one Hawks and Grizzlies player in each lineup? I don't think you need them, but I think you'll probably get them with running an optimizer. But
yeah,
no.
Definitely
one Grizzly.
I mean, need is a hard way to like. You're just gonna get those guys because they're the best guys. So I'm sure you can build a lineup without them. I would be very surprised if one person from that game did not make the winning lineup.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't stress out if I didn't have it and you liked your lineup, but I would really want to know how far away is that lineup you built from the optimal. Because I would guess that that's a pretty gigantic fantasy point discount. And you're obviously going to be quite contrarian.
I think that makes sense and not far from where I would say. I know that Eddie does phrase it like that often, so I think that's why the question's being asked, where he'll say like you can't imagine the winning line of not having one or two. And I do think that's a fine way to look at it. But I think for the most part, if you can get away from that game, you're certainly doing yourself probably a benefit just from getting away some of the ownership, because you're going to have some chalkier guys for the most part. But I wouldn't be like, oh, if I didn't get Jonas, let me put in Kyle Anderson. Like Kyle Anderson's fine if you get him, but I just don't view it as like a must thing.
Right. All right, I've got a dummy lineup in, so that makes me feel good now.
Blake saying, I did cry over Little Nicky that's one of the things I've revealed here. So I'm sure Shroom's Sick and Deep did not cry, actually, just wanted the thing to end. And in fact, I thought I had to propose to an ex. I thought I had to vomit it up. I thought I had to stop eating meat when I saw a cow's head in the vomit that I was forcing myself to put out. So that's, that's not the...
You didn't stop eating meat, did you?
No, certainly not.
I probably would have took that one seriously, but I would have died, I think. I pretty much only eat meat.
In the moment, I was like, all right, well, if this gets me out of it, I'll tell myself that I'm going to stop eating meat.
Unrelated for right now, but do you know who Rashad Evans is? Former MMA fighter? Yeah. Okay, so he was on Rogan like 2 weeks ago talking about some fairly deep DMT trips, and he has since stopped eating meat because of it.
There you go. I mean, look, sometimes you can get the clarity from those types of things.
Seth Curry out.
Not for me. Oh, there you go. All right. So, I mean, that probably opens up a little more for Tim Hardaway, because Curry's been jacking him up the last couple games, one would think.
Honestly, I don't think that it matters all that much. They have so many of these dudes that just slot into that spot. You give JJ Barea some run even on the back-to-back. I don't know who's going to get the biggest boost out of this. Last time Curry sat, Luka was also out for both of those games. So that's going to cloud everything a little bit. But they do have like 30 minutes to go around now. I'm going to assume JJ Barea plays, but I don't think it matters all that much. Actually, not having Jalen Brunson actually makes this matter a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean... I don't love
it. Makes me like Luka more.
Yes, I would agree there too.
I
mean, the last two games, like really Curry has been going off, like particularly in these last two. Obviously, if you look at the season-long sample sizes, they're not that great.
Yeah, Courtney Lee probably like plays 20 minutes, which is don't play Courtney Lee. Did they cut Ryan Brokoff yet? He went from miraculously playing to not miraculously playing.
I don't believe he's been cut. No, but
I mean, they jerk these dudes around pretty aggressively.
Yeah, they do.
Don't be proud of yourself.
Actually, Brokoff isn't on the slate, it looks like, so maybe they did get rid of him. Or at least maybe he's in the G League, but he would still be on the roster. I don't know. They might have waived him at some point.
Josh has that sold my house swagger today. Actually true.
Oh, you sold the house? Congratulations.
Well, we're under contract. We got an offer and it was accepted. So step one. Still
houses seem not the most fun thing.
I mean, this could work out perfectly. We still needed. Shout out to David if you're watching.
Nariki asking why not Denzel and Shaq together? I mean, 6K altogether on DraftKings. No other flat 3K values out there. I would say for me, I don't mind it as much. I'm not going to go crazy on that build, but I think I will have them a little bit. But I feel like the minutes especially with Boylan, it's just a bit of a risky minutes proposition, which we've seen verbatim with Shaq a few times. So I think that's really the reason why I would. But do you want to explain why no Shaq and Denzel together, given that they're 6K together?
I feel like you would end up too far away from the optimal on that one. I don't trust. I'm not totally confident that they would both close. And I think that they might just be really, really bad. They don't really have anybody that's like a good creator in the NBA right now outside of Satoransky. So that could get really ugly for the Bulls. Dallas not having Porzingis is helpful. Look, if you're playing 150 lineups, if you have like 3 or 4 of them with both of them in there, I don't think that that's unreasonable. I can't imagine that's a good single lineup build.
Sure. No, I think that's a perfectly reasonable take to have. And, I think they're going to occur for me a little bit here, though, I'm obviously willing to play some weird constructions just because that's how I entertain myself in this process. But I do think that, it's dicey on the wing minutes, and there's just enough ways there. Porter being back in the mix too. You're taking on more risk than you probably would if you were really loading up on them. Would be the reason I would say.
Yeah, like I would. But, you've got other guys in the like. Just make one of those lineups be Aaron Holiday or James Ennis or I don't know, Tyus Jones, Jeff Teague. Like, there's enough guys to just throw some darts at that you don't have to double down on two of like the 10th and 11th guys from the Bulls.
Sure. Though maybe this is just the spark the Bulls needed. I guess we'll find out.
Actually, let's see. What do I have? I probably need to rerun that. Yeah. Chicago. Actually, I have a minimum salary guy here. So you need like 29 or so fantasy points in a GPP. So let's just call it 30. Getting 60 from the two of them seems like that would be a pretty aggressive push.
Yeah, that seems like a perfectly reasonable take. Yeah, I don't mind it. If you're playing enough entries here, if you're playing a single entry, maybe not the best move. That's
what I mean. Like, if you have 3 or 4 lineups like that in 150, that's fine. I think that you're going to get a different construction. To build one, I'd like to know what our optimal looks like in comparison to building one with those two guys locked. I'd like to know the difference. If anybody in chat's got a free couple seconds, how many points is the drop off on DraftKings between our optimal and if you locked both 3K Bulls?
We'll see if anybody comes in with that.
Somebody will.
We kind of breezed past Memphis, and I want to circle back to it, not just because of the Dylan Brooks thing, but people asking about Brooks in particular right now. And to be clear, I do have a good amount of Dylan Brooks. I'm actually above the field on him in our most recent run of ownership.
Mm-hmm.
He's shooting 22 times a game or over 22 times a game in the last 3 games, picking up a lot of that usage that both Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark leave behind. Ja Morant, I still think on paper is a good play. I got there less than I thought I would because of some other point guards I want to play a bit more. I still think it's a nice spot for him, putting up 60 fantasy points against the Lakers. Ja Morant's a weird dude because he plays like just a fan of the other guys, basically, where he goes nuts whenever there's a big game or some high level player who feels disrespected by. So maybe he brings that energy to Trae Young. I don't know. But Jonas Valanciunas also looks good on paper, playing over 32 minutes his last 3 games or over 31 his last few games. Maybe gets paced out a little bit there, but if they're playing Fernando at center, I think that probably helps him out. What are you getting on Memphis? Melton, too, a guy we talked about before, DeAnthony Melton. The rates take enough to jump where I got less of him than I thought I'd have earlier in the day, but I do think having some of him makes sense. Tell me what you're getting on Memphis.
What am I getting on Memphis? So on my last crunch, I had 58% Joval, 40% Ja, 12% Dylan Brooks, 15% Slow-Mo.
Okay. I like the Kyle Anderson play. I feel like he's a guy I wouldn't mind playing in a lineup that didn't have Jonas Valanciunas in particular, just because I do think there's some way that maybe Valanciunas doesn't get as much minutes as we might think, and then you see Kyle at the center. But
Drew Eubanks starting for the Spurs.
That makes sense. I mean, he started the second half last game. So is Eubanks a guy you would play? He's over a fantasy point per minute, and he's minimum price as well.
No?
Okay.
Dude, I can't get the minutes out of the center when the center I think is playing is actually good for the Spurs. Look, again, if you're playing 150 lineups, I don't think it's irrational to have some Drew Eubanks. Best of luck to you in figuring out how many minutes that dude is actually going to play.
It seemed like based on the second half of last game, he was trending towards a little bit under 20. I think he had about 9.5, 10 in that one. So that would be my gut take on it. But it also possibly takes a few away from Trey Lyles because Trey Lyles played 40 in that spot. So, I think that there's room for him to have production in a spot where they do need some bigs in there because they're playing Indiana.
Right. And it's not like he's good. So it's too scary for me. Look, on DraftKings, play a couple if you want. Perfect opportunity to swap out of one of those other 3K Bulls, but be prepared to get popped.
He's got a 19% rebound rate, 1.05 fantasy points per minute on the year, shooting 74% from the floor, though admittedly not shooting very much, only 4 shot attempts a game. But he's the kind of dude who can play. Overall, probably not enough.
Yeah.
Let's see. He's had some games. I mean, the most he's played in a game is he played 22 minutes against Detroit earlier this season.
Yeah, I think everybody was out with the flu.
Maybe. No, I think it was a blowout. Yeah, it was a 98-132 game where they got smoked. So that's probably one. But he was good in that one. 22 minutes, 21.5 fantasy points. But that's, that's garbage time run probably. So I don't know.
I hate this slate.
It's a very silly slate, to be clear.
It's really unappealing. There's just too much garbage.
Well, you know what's one thing that is appealing? And we're getting a question from our boy Shelton Myers, who's always playing on SuperDraft because he recognizes the value in playing on a new site. But he's asking the ideal cash game build for SuperDraft. Don't have time to give you a full lineup today because we got to get everything else in here for the last 10 minutes. But the jump shot still has about 1,000 entries left to get in there. So decent chance of overlay, pretty decent chance as well of there at least being no rake on this one. So go check them out, superdraft.io, and use that promo code Awesemo10. Get $10 with no deposit, $20 with under $100 deposit, $30 with over 100 deposit. That's free money that comes to you right away in super cash. So check them out right now at superdraft.io and use that promo code Awesemo10 to get that deposit in there right now. And I guess let's just name, SuperDraft projections are free. So I feel like just use Awesomo's projections would be my first recommendation for SuperDraft.
Yeah, if you're playing cash, you should probably run something no further away than like 1.5 from the Awesemo optimal.
Yeah, and his guys, too, that he has amongst the top plays today, guys like McCollum, Vucevic. I mean, literally, these are the guys in order. These are Awesomo's top projected plays on SuperDraft right now. So
you just hit them, and I'll give my rank as well. Let's just go through like the first 10 or so.
CJ McCollum.
Number 1.
Nikola Vucevic.
3rd.
We got Malcolm Brogdon.
8th.
Julius Randle.
4th.
Rudy Gobert.
Ooh. Wildly different on this one. 23rd.
Okay, so maybe no Gobert for cash. Hassan Whiteside.
13th.
James Harden, and then Giannis, Domantas Sabonis.
Harden, 6th. Giannis, 2. Sabonis, 14. So there we go.
Yeah, so those would be the guys to start getting in there, but just take the bigger name guys if you're playing cash. I mean, anybody who feels flighty to you, I just think maybe not, but those guys all seem like pretty secure plays for me where I wouldn't worry about playing just whatever you get of Awesomo's top 10 in your lineup, because this isn't like the days where you have the 2x multiplier guys or the 1.9x multiplier guys popping up. These are guys getting steady run who have really good opportunities, and that's kind of a very easy super draft slate for cash.
We just got an ownership update. So shout out to Makad, by the way.
Let's see what we got. Jonas Valanciunas, Nikola Vucevic, Luka Doncic, Denzel Valentine, all up top. Larry Nance, Kevin Porter right behind them on DraftKings. So that hasn't changed too much, I don't think. DeRozan, I guess, has taken a little bit of a drop on DraftKings.
I haven't looked at any DK ownership yet.
Eric Moon really wants to know about Willie Cauley-Stein. I would say don't play him, or I'm not playing him at least.
Yeah. I would just skip it.
Yeah. Sorry to not provide any more insight than that, but yeah, just I don't think he's feels like you're trying to get a little too smart for the actual things, which isn't a bad thing sometimes, but
not today. There's so many dudes in like the threes now that not only do you have to hope that one of those guys doesn't go off, but then you got to hope you're absolutely right too. That doesn't seem like the day to like guess.
That much I would agree with as well. Also, that was a fun synonym for that's fair. That one just came out of me organically. That much I agree with as well. Put that one in your drinking game. Whoever it was that keeps commenting that.
Put that in right now.
But yeah, right now, I want you to put that into the drinking game, and that would be fair to me. See, if you missed the Friday show, by the way, you missed a barn burner of a show. That's why to really hang on for the days that Josh and I are most delirious and have to do an extra half hour of show, because that's when all the joyous things come out. So, boy, TJ McConnell or Shaq Harrison for a FanDuel GPP. That would be Shaq for me.
Yeah, Shaq.
Thoughts on Dylan Brooks for a FanDuel GPP?
I'm relatively neutral to the field, so no problem with it. I like him more than Spags.
I think he's fine today. I just don't think that Denzel Valentine's a much worse player.
I'm gonna tell him you said that.
I stand by it. It's all about opportunity in the NBA. It's a slim margin between the guys who go off and have big careers and the guys who don't. Especially, well, not big careers, but guys who have profitable careers. Here's a guy that you asked about, or that you mentioned earlier. Dadler's asking Aaron Holiday thoughts for a DK GPP. What are your thoughts on him now that you've had some time for everything to simmer and coagulate?
I like him more on FanDuel than I do on DraftKings. He's in play on DraftKings. He makes my player pool, if that helps. He looks like he's going under or unowned. Has not been good as of late, though.
No, not so much, but price is fine.
Holy heartburn.
Conley or Brooks for a DK GPP? I would take Brooks today.
DK?
Yep.
Brooks.
Yeah. Conley's a fine play. I think he's perfectly safe.
You know what's really funny? I looked at that and was just like, 2 Grizzlies.
Yeah, Mike Conley, very much not a Grizzly and suffering for it every day.
Maybe.
Would you play Rudy Gay and DeRozan together? Laminator asks. I don't hate it, but it's out of construction I have today.
Yeah, there's no reason not to.
Yeah. Hunter or Porter for last spot in a DK cash build for Johnny Utah?
Hunter. Otto Porter? No, Kevin Porter.
I think it's Kevin. Got to be Kevin.
I would rather have Kevin Porter.
Okay.
Whoa, that's a healthy amount of Gary Trent.
Yeah, what are your final exposures? Anything surprising to you as they're coming in?
Too much Gary Trent. I'm working on that now.
Okay. Seems like an important part.
Yeah. Something like that.
Damn it. I'll tell you what, a build with Denzel Valentine, Shaq Harrison, and Drew Eubanks really opens up everything.
By the way, the lineup with those two guys in it together wasn't all that off of the optimal. I'm still nervous about the closing lineup for that situation, but at the same time, I think it's more than. How does that not move him down at all? I understand. I think that more than makes up for, like, I think it's worth the shot since you're not that far off of the optimal. So I don't hate it as much as I thought I did.
Let's see. Okay. Did you answer Hunter or Porter, by the way? I feel like we asked it, but I don't know.
Porter.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree on Porter as well. For cash, especially for it's Porter. But Hunter, I think I'll have some tonight. I think he's a perfectly fine play. Barrett and Herter on FanDuel. Which would you lean? I'd have more Herter than Barrett, but Awesemo did mention Barrett being an interesting pivot to Elf, so I would still go Herter, but I do think Barrett.
I have more Herter. Hammer don't Herter.
Kleber or Lyles for a FanDuel GPP?
Lyles.
Yeah, I would go Lyles too. His price is, I think, a little more appealing. On FanDuel than DraftKings rather. Josh Jackson or Slow-Mo?
Slow-Mo.
Our boy El Negro Loco asks.
Slow-Mo.
Yeah, it's Slow-Mo.
I mean, neither, but slow-mo.
How do we feel about Aaron? I feel like we just answered this, but how do we feel about Aaron Holiday in a FanDuel GPP?
I don't mind it. But, like, be prepared. You're going to be let down way more often than that succeeds.
We should make that caveat for everything.
I mean, that's true for literally every player.
Yeah.
But, like, I only have Aaron Holiday hitting his target score 15% of the time. So 8 out of 10 times, he's going to give you 24. Yeah,
that's fair. Damn it, I said it. Anything else here?
Let's get these lineups in.
So yeah, you guys got a minute left here, and then on SuperDraft, also about a minute left, and 600 entries or so left to fill on there. So again, just throw something in there. You're the top plays on SuperDraft one more time. McCollum, Vucevic, Brogdon, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, Hassan Whiteside, James Harden, Giannis, Domantas Sabonis, Jimmy Butler, Luka Doncic. Just put in some mix of those guys in there because you'll have a pretty good chance at getting take advantage of some of the overlay, and or at the very least saving on rake with some high quality guys here.
Let's go Larry Nance tonight.
Yeah, I'm with it.
As much as 100% of Larry Nance?
No, definitely not 100%. No. Got to get your Drew Eubanks in. That's
Howard.
That's the reason why. Mello or Satoransky? Hoodmaster asks. That's very much Satoransky for me by a wide margin.
Yes, agreed.
Let's see. Let's talk about head-to-head. Seconds left to get your lineups in. Get them in on all the sites as well as SuperDraft. Everything locks 7 p.m. Eastern today. So get it in. SuperDraft, again, looking like they'll have at least no rake, maybe a bit of overlay. Can't do the math right now, but take advantage of SuperDraft. If they're not filling on a Monday, that you know that there's a lot of money to go around on there. And that's it's going to behoove you to get signed up right now with the promo code Awesemo10 on superdraft.io. Talked about that. All right, no good questions. So I think we must have done a perfect show. That'd be my guess.
Well, how could we not?
Teague, pretty good. That's the one I probably won't have much Jeff Teague today. But yeah, maybe he gets a second.
Jeff Teague.
Yeah, I don't think I have a single lineup with Jeff Teague, but he projects well on paper.
I do not like the fact that I'm about to cheer for the front court of the Cavs tonight.
Yeah, going against Utah. That's the time when you want to play your Cavs, for sure.
Oi. What
is this guy? So somebody got muted, and I don't even know what is. He got muted for spamming, I think, but like, that spam is gibberish.
DFS and Coke?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that.
It's like, what is
over and over and over again. I got tired of reading it.
Do you think that's funny?
I don't know. It was just irritating. And we're locked.
We're locked. We are locked. Let's do a quick little round of the ownership game here before we call it quits. And once again, SuperDraft's contest just short of filling, about 400 entries short. So again, sign up on SuperDraft. We appreciate them helping us put the show on every day. More importantly for you guys, it's a really easy way for you to win money, especially on the days where we give out free projections. You can be a total bum and not pay for a single thing from us, but you're just killing yourself if you don't play on SuperDraft every day. So sign up, superdraft.io, or download SuperDraft in the App Store and use the promo code Awesemo10 when you do sign up to get yourself a deposit bonus, $10 with no deposit at all, $20 if you deposit less than $100, and $30 if you deposit more than $100. So just be smart with your money. And that's what SuperDraft's giving you a chance to do every day. It's not just blowing smoke up your ass. That much I promise you.
David Chang had some Thai pepper chicken Doritos from Taiwan. Said they're the best he's ever tasted. I'm intrigued. I might have to get myself some of those.
Wait, from where?
They're from Taiwan.
Oh, okay. Not that he got them. So I thought he got it somewhere in North Carolina, or went to visit somewhere in North Carolina, and you were going to go.
No.
I have not watched Ugly Delicious' new season yet, but a good show. David Chang does good content for a guy who's a chef primarily.
He does.
All right, number one ownership guy in this few games that we have locked here. I believe we have 3 games locked right now. Josh, who do you think it would be in the DK Big Jam today with 100K up top?
Let me see if I have a time filter on this. I do. Number 1 would be Vooch.
It is, in fact, one Larold Nance, 39% in the DK Big Jam.
Larold?
I thought that was a fun name to call.
Not Lawrence?
No, Larold. It's like Lawrence is what you'd expect. That's why you go Larold. You make it a little different.
Yeah, that's not a name.
Anything is a name if you choose it. When you have a child, or if you ever have a child, Josh, we ever have a child, you can name it Brisket if you want.
You could.
Or you could name it Larold, and it would be 38% owned in the Big Jam. He or she would be 38% owned. Yeah. Number 2 here, I'll burn through the rest. Kevin Porter at 32 feels a little lofty, but how do you feel about that?
I would like less than that.
I'm at about 20, and I feel okay about that. I like Kevin Porter, but it's playing Utah.
I would like a little bit less than that. I'm shocked about Vooch.
Vooch is up next, 26%. How would you feel about that one?
I assume I would have had more.
I am definitely above that.
Given our ownership projections, I don't think that I would have had more, but I would have wanted more.
I got him at 50. I feel I'm in enough on him where I feel okay about that. But I mean, logically, he just stands to benefit a lot. He was good against Portland earlier in the year with Whiteside as well. Put up, I think, 53 fantasy points, something like that, maybe 57, somewhere in that range. James Harden is up next at 16%. People had money to spend. I think that's actually a better play. I did not get anywhere near that much Harden, but I liked him theoretically today.
I probably would have been in that neighborhood.
How about Kevin Love at 14.5?
Yeah, I would want more than that.
I'm at 15, I think. So I'm feeling good about that one. McCollum, I got less than I thought. He's been just getting 50 fantasy point days over and over again, 4 out of his last 5 since Lillard went out. He's at 14%. I think that's a perfectly reasonable amount for him. I think I'm at 10.
I think I would have had 0.
Okay. Yeah. Price is tough, but Orlando's giving up some big games, including that game on Friday that we discussed against Minnesota, which I believe I said I could see being about 125, 126 or something like that. And ended up just under 130 each. So
I had Fultz.
There you go. Julius Randle, I'll just burn through these. Julius Randle, 14%. Russell Westbrook, 11.6. Colin Sexton, 11%. Donovan Mitchell, 10.4. Mike Conley, 10.2. Any of those guys jump out to you as being egregiously under or over-owned?
Nothing too crazy. I probably would have had more Conley, but nothing too crazy.
Elfrid Payton, rounded up 10%. Evan Fournier as well, rounded up 10%. Bob Covington, 9.5%. Terrence Ross, 9.4%. That's kind of interesting with the usage he'll have going to second unit. Mo Harkless, 8.7%. Mitchell Robinson, 8%. James Ennis, 8% rounded up. James Ennis, 8%. Where would you have been with that?
Under.
Markelle Fultz, 6.4. I am over on that one. I'm at 25 Markelle. So go Markelle, go. Rudy Gobert, 5%. Jordan Clarkson rounded up 5. Chetty Osman, 4.5. RJ Barrett, 4. Gary Clark, 3.7. Too much Gary Clark by about 3.6%, you think?
Yeah, he's not in my player pool.
Yeah, me neither. Melo, 3.7. Hasn't spiked an upside day without Lillard. Maybe a time that he does, but probably not. Royce O'Neal, 3.5. DJ Augustine, 2.8. Eric Gordon, 2.8. Danuel House, 2.7. Interesting one. Ante Zizic, I did get a little bit of him. 2.5% feels about right to me. Would you have had that much?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm still worried why we're going with that W in Daniel House's name, but
Danuel House. Yeah, here that's what I probably should correct, because I do think that that might be a vestigial incorrect name that I have in my heart, but
I mean,
maybe I'll get it out.
That's more correct than Larold.
To be clear, I don't believe his name's actually Larold. I just think it'd be funny if his name were Larold. So those are two important distinctions to make. PJ Tucker, 2.5. Gary Trent, 2.1. Bojan Bogdanovic, 2.1%. Trevor Ariza, 1.6. Hassan Whiteside, 1.3 feels a little low. I didn't love his price, but that's not very much Hassan.
Not in my player pool.
Damn. I didn't get him today, but I kind of wish I had a little bit, just because that's so little, and you can certainly have a big day. Joe Ingles, 1.2. Michael Carter-Williams, 1.1. Taj Gibson, 0.7. Bobby Portis, 0.7. Matthew Dellavedova, 0.7. Frank Ntilikina, 0.6. Austin Rivers, 0.5. Jeff Green, 0.5. Mo Bamba, 0.4. Ben McLemore, 0.3. Kevin Knox, 0.3. Andre Drummond, 0.23. Where were those people today? What did they do, Josh?
I don't know. I'm still worried about why you're calling Jeff Green Jeff Green.
Yeah, like Jeffrey. Like that's what his name is short for. It's spelled the Y. Like who's the baseball player with Jeffrey? There's a Jeffrey for sure.
Ramirez, I believe.
Yeah, there's a Jeffrey somewhere in the MLB. I remember that from season coming up any minute now.
Yikes.
Aggressive chat comment by Fed Smoker, but you know what? I'll let that through our filter because I'm not. All right. We are locked. We appreciate you watching very much, you out there, whether you're playing on SuperDraft or not. But if you're not, you're just making a mistake for yourself. Obviously, it helps us out. They're a sponsor here, but more importantly, it's just an easy way to build bankroll. I can't tell you this guy's enough every day, but make sure to go to superdraft.io. Use the promo code Awesemo10, AWESEMO10. $10 free with no deposit, $20 with less than 100. $30 with over 100. So take advantage of it. There's been overlay. It's been decreased rate. It's an easy way for you to build your bankroll, and they help us put on the show. So it helps everybody out, including you, most and foremost. So check them out, superdraft.io. And Josh, anything you want to hit on before we call it quits?
No, I'm going to go watch the Cavs game because my night lives and dies with Larry Nance and Kevin Love to a lesser extent.
Yeah, we got some Cavs to root for tonight in a spot where we'll be like, why do we play so much Cavs against the Jazz? But we'll find out in a little bit. So we appreciate you guys. Hit the like button before you go. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. And of course, if you're not subscribed, check our podcast feed on Apple Podcasts. It's where all of the content comes after it goes up. Josh's Contenders, a strategy show, the Four Corners, all that stuff is on our podcast feed every day. So subscribe, give us 5 stars and a review on there as well. I think we might be doing some giveaways still, but more importantly, it's just another way to get the content. We appreciate you guys. Have a great night. See you soon. Good luck.
Deuces.